call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Thank you. Ms. Connor?
Here.
Ms. Kratz?
Here.
Ms. Snyman?
Here.
Mr. Brad Updegrove?
Here.
Mr. Roger Updegrove? Here. Mr. Weir?
Here.
Ms. Wiley?
Here.
Mr. Brophy?
Here.
Mr. Panarello?
Here.
All present.
Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence. Yeah, there was nothing. There was no previous executive session.
Takes us down to item 4, recognition showcase, and I'd like to invite to the podium our athletic director, Mr. Nick Palladino. We have a special recognition this evening, and I'd like to turn it over to him for the introductions.
Thank you, Dr. David Heiser. A few months back, we were lucky enough as a department to have Coach Todd Moyer. He was inducted, recognized into the Tri-County chapter of the Pennsylvania Sports Hall of Fame, which in this area, it's a big deal. A lot of times we nominate our coaches or our former players, and we've been lucky enough to have that recognition in that area for our coach. Coach Moyer is somebody who is a stand-up individual, not only to our teams and to our players, but in the community. So at this time, I'd like to invite Coach Moyer and Representative Maloney up to the podium.
Thanks again.
Well, good evening, everybody. I have to say that when you represent a district and an area that has sort of a variety of issues and people, it's always a pleasure for me and an honor for me to come back to the roots, if you will, of an area that has probably had the biggest impact on your life. And for me, that's Boyertown. And so today is also very special to me. When I reached out to the athletic director some time ago, I said, you know, there's a lot of different ways that recognition for people can happen, and I would certainly like to get a citation from the House of Representatives for Todd. And there's a little bit of a description in it that I think I'll read because I think it's very important to know the length of this impact on the community and some of the things that it would mean to me and others who know what I'm going to say. So this citation from the House of Representatives, which I always like to put a little extra plug in there because they're so much nicer than the Senate. They just don't seem to get that. But so here's a few statistics that I like to read to you. Todd Moyer is being honored upon his induction into the Tri-County chapter of the Pennsylvania Sports Hall of Fame during a ceremony which was held November 1st, which was already mentioned to us. Now, for folks like myself who have sort of grew up with individuals who have had interactions of different walks of life, to me as an athlete, as a PIAA official in a couple sports. Actually, I was the only one in the House of Representatives that was for 2 sports. And when you get to see the youth and you get to see the sort of the interaction and the development of kids, there are people who are behind that. And we know that many times it's parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, pastors, teachers. Some of the best mentors that you can have something to do with those folks' success or where they go. And for me, Todd is one of those great examples. Todd is a 78 graduate of Boyertown. Now I'm going to stop right there. Some of you in here have heard me say that before. That actually happens to be the best graduating class. You know, Greg, we're sorry about that, but we sort of let the standard kind of teach guys like you. It's a little bit of a jab, but we have a lot of fun with it. Shows our age, but shows our pride too. Where he excelled in baseball, Mr. Moyer signed a contract with the Pittsburgh Pirates and played in the team's farm system prior to returning to Boyertown. Now, I got to tell you a little bit of story about that. He knows this is an old story, but I like to put it out there because it's really a lot of fun. So, having graduated the same time I did, and you know what happens, your lives go off in different directions, and sometimes you come back and in my case, I saw Todd, who pretty much graduated at like 5'9". 4 years later, the guy was half a giant. It's like, what in the world happened here? I mean, it's like he really got the juice, and you know, it went like 7-8 inches. He knows I always jab him about it, but it's true. I mean, he graduated like 5'9", and I see him 4 years out of high school, and he's 6'4", and he's out there playing ball at the pool, and it was just it was really good stuff, because we never know how those things change in our lives and what it means. But it made a big impact for folks like me who really noticed that kind of change. I got the same thing from people, but the fact of the matter was it was in different ways, and Todd really showed how he could apply the tools of his abilities and his outreach to kids that made a really big impact in Boyertown. So in 1985, Todd came back to Boyertown as assistant coach. He was named the head coach in 94. Under his leadership, the Bears captured the PIAA state title in 2016 and won 14 league titles. To his great credit, Mr. Moyer has amassed more than 483 career wins. He was inducted into the Boyertown Senior High Baseball Hall of Fame in 2024, recognized by the USA Today as the All-USA Pennsylvania Coach of the Year in 2016. Exuded vision, energy, and enthusiasm. He approaches each day's work with the highest of professional standards, sets a sterling example of dedication, skill, and hard work for the young athletes that we know that he has been a great role model to. And so now, therefore, the House of Representatives in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania extends heartfelt congratulations to Todd Moyer upon his most noteworthy achievement, offers best wishes and continued success in his future endeavors. So it's a great honor for me to be able to present this to a classmate, friend, and one of your great community mentors. Congratulations, my friend.
All right. Thank you, John, brother. Thank you. Thank you. You want a picture? Where's the picture? Any picture? Oh, there you go. Right there. There you go. Good. All right. I've heard that story before. I lived it, and there was no jab, and there was no juice. So I'm just be sure on that. It was all, all natural stuff. Anyway, thank you to all of you. Thank you for everybody watching. And most importantly, I spent the last 40 years trying to impress on our baseball team and our baseball players and their parents that this isn't an individual thing. So an individual award for me it's an honor, but not for me, it's for them, and thank you to all the players and to the parents who allowed us to hopefully affect their lives in a positive way, and the support of the administration along the way. All right, thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations, Coach Moyer. Thank you, Representative Maloney. All right, that takes us down into our discussion and information section for this evening. And we're going to start with item A, water quality management. we have invited this evening, and I'm going to ask to go to the podium, Jeremy Crum, who is the Vice President of Environmental Services for Suburban Water Technology. Just for a little backstory and information, over the summer, Suburban Water took over our water license here in the school district, as we have 3 Weld properties, and began working with us over the summertime and taking over the reins of the oversight of our water quality. What has come more into detection and into the news more recently is the detection of PFAS at Gilbertsville Elementary. And we wanted to make sure that we inform the board, our public, about some of those regulations, some of the information, some of the remediation plans that we're recommending to address some of the situation that is taking place at Gilbertsville. So I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Crum for his presentation this evening.
All right, thank you. That's a tough act to follow, though. I get to talk about PFAS, and Todd gets to get recognized for all of his accomplishments. So let's start with what is PFAS. So PFAS are synthetic chemicals that have been used in a lot of different items since the 40s. Some of the most common items that it's used in: nonstick cookware like Teflon, firefighting foam, stain-resistant, water-resistant clothing, makeup, fast food wrappers. So it's kind of in everything. Teflon tape is a big thing that's used in the water industry, so that when we're doing all the water sampling, it can even be in the piping in the distribution system. It's not always coming directly from the well. It could be being introduced from within the building as well. The PFAS rule for Pennsylvania was passed in 2023. The limits that we follow are called the maximum contaminant level, or MCL. There's 2 PFAS compounds that are regulated by Pennsylvania currently. That's PFAS and PFOA. PFAS has an MCL of 18 parts per trillion. PFOA has a MCL of 14 parts per trillion. Monitoring for these 2 compounds started in 2024 and carried on into 2025. Those samples were based on population of the water system. So larger water systems were tested sooner than smaller water systems. So all of the schools for Boyertown School District are relatively small that have wells, so they weren't tested until 2024 and 2025. The regulation states that we must sample quarterly for each of those compounds for 1 year. Based on those results, that dictates how often they get tested after that, 4 consecutive quarters. After those 4 consecutive quarters are tested, the DEP calculates the running annual average of those 4 samples. So they just basically take all 4 sample sets, add those numbers together, divide by 4, and get a running annual average. Now, the federal rule is a little different than the Pennsylvania rule. The federal EPA rule, there's 5 different PFAS compounds that they're looking at, and the regulation currently is stating that the EPA rule MCL for PFAS is 4 parts per trillion, and PFOA is also 4 parts per trillion. So as I said earlier, the Pennsylvania rule for PFAS is 18 parts per trillion and 14 parts per trillion for PFOA. Oh, let me go back one. So currently, as water systems in Pennsylvania, we only have to abide by the Pennsylvania MCLs. The EPA federal MCLs are going to be rolled out into the states around 2031. I say around 2031 because it was going to be 2029, and the EPA recently pushed that back to 2031. They may push it back further. We have no way to know that. So currently, our goal is to obviously meet all the PA rules and MCLs, and eventually get to the point where we're meeting the EPA regulations once they're finalized. So let's talk about each of the Boyertown schools in particular. Let's start with Earl Elementary. In 2025, all 4 quarters, there were non-detects. So that means there was nothing detectable. So the water won't be tested again for PFAS until 2027. New Hanover Elementary School, that school was tested in 2024. And again, there were non-detects. So that school won't be tested again until this year. So it's every 2 years. Gilbertsville Elementary School, in 2024 is when the sampling began. There was 1 detection for PFAS below the MCL, and 7 of the sample sets, there were no detects at all. As for PFOA, there were 7 detects of below the MCL and 1 above the MCL. The running annual average currently today is 8.4 parts per trillion, and then the MCL for that is 14 parts per trillion. So we're still well below the Pennsylvania MCL for both contaminants. So therefore, we are in compliance 100% with the Pennsylvania DEP. We talk to them regularly and just make sure that there's nothing's changed, and they're still, agreeing that we are in full compliance. Now let's talk about treatment options. Currently, there's 2 approved treatment techniques that the DEP allows us to do in water systems. One is carbon filtration. Carbon filtration works great. The downside to it is it takes a bigger footprint because you need more contact time to reduce PFAS and PFOA using carbon filtration versus anion resin. Anion resin is a resin that was specifically made for negative ions in the water. PFAS and PFOA are both negative ions. So this resin was designed to take those out of the water specifically. The advantage to that is you need 5 minutes of contact time, which results in less media needed to be used and less footprint. The anion resin is more expensive than the carbon, but you only use about a quarter of it based on the contact time. So our recommendations that we've been working on currently are using the anion resin. This is another school in Berks County that we did PFAS treatment at recently. It's a very simple treatment system. It's a passive system. The water just flows through the media bed. There's no backwashing, there's no rinsing, there's no electronics. So it's a very simple treatment technique to treat for these chemicals. So I just wanted to show a current one or a recent one that we just did. Now, cost and timeline. The timeline is basically dependent on the DEP. It's a first come, first served basis once we submit the application. The application for construction has to be signed and sealed by a professional engineer. So in our company, what we do is we have an engineer that we work with. We assist him with designing the water system. He signs it, seals it, submits it to the Pennsylvania DEP. We can do our part of the application in 3 to 4 weeks. Then the DEP has up to 180 days to approve those applications. Once we receive the permit to install the water treatment system, we can typically have it done in 4 to 6 weeks. After it's installed, before we can turn the system on, we have to have it inspected by the Pennsylvania DEP. That process typically takes 2 to 3 weeks. Cost for an average system for an elementary school based on 20 gallons per minute flow is about $30,000. That includes engineering fees, installation, materials, basically the entire system. So overall, compared to other contaminants that could be in the water, it's not really overly expensive. Even for homes, we've done individual homes for treatment for less than $1,000. So it is very treatable. It's something that is all throughout the country. It's not just here. We have treatment systems in New Jersey and in Pennsylvania, so it's definitely a common issue that we're seeing everywhere. Now, Mr. David Heiser, did you have specific questions?
So you had mentioned the origin, and what's been in the news most recently is the landfill
Yes.
that's been closed for, 40 years or so next to it. Understanding aquifers run underneath, and we're seeing that detection of it at Gilbertsville. We're not seeing the detections at the 2 other weld systems that we have. So some of the questions I've gotten from families, one has been, so your water's contaminated, why aren't you shutting all the water off, and why aren't you providing alternative measures? Can you speak to that a little bit with regard to this?
Sure. So everything that we test for, like I said, has MCLs, and then it's ruled or overseen by the Pennsylvania DEP. So if the levels were above the MCL, then the Pennsylvania DEP would give us guidance of public education, public notices, alternative water sources, and being that we are below the MCL under the Pennsylvania PFAS rule, we just are in compliance, so there's no further action needed currently. obviously, if the school opts to go above and beyond and treat now, we can. And that's a path that we can certainly do.
So other questions I've received has been just a little bit about the PFOA and PFAs in general in terms of why has there been regulations that have just recently in the last couple of years come into play with regard to that. And talk a little bit about with our weld systems, we also test on other items that we have to test on most regularly and meet those and stay within the exceedance levels with
Sure.
regard to that.
So, yeah, like you said, PFAs are really new. So it's constantly evolving. The guidance is constantly evolving. So we stay up to date as much as we can with the EPA and the DEP guidance. The EPA, I think it mostly started near military bases with the firefighting foam. That's where they started detecting it first. Like Willow Grove was one of the first in our area that had really high levels of these chemicals because of the firefighting foam. So I think that, the Safe Drinking Water Act was put into play and adopted by our country so that we could provide safe drinking water. And they're constantly, detecting new chemicals and new guidelines and MCLs for different chemicals so that we can make sure we're providing safe drinking water. You asked about other testing that we do. Heavy metals, that's another one that we monitor, arsenic in particular. When I started in this industry, when I interned at DEP, the MCL for arsenic was 50 parts per billion, and currently it's only 10 parts per billion. So as the EPA gets more knowledge and more testing and see the impacts on public health, then they change those MCLs as they see fit. So the school tests for nitrates, it tests for lead and copper, heavy metals, coliform bacteria is tested monthly, and then there's all those MCLs, and if they're not approaching or at those MCLs, then they just are in compliance, and there's no further actions with those either.
So I guess one of the questions that's come up, safe, right? So is the water safe? Is it safe to drink? Is it safe to, interact with food and surfaces and things of that nature? Well, obviously we want to work toward driving the numbers down to be
Sure.
below that 4 MCL threshold, right? And part of that is figuring out what sorts of filtration systems work best and investigating that.
Yep.
Is that safe? Is it,
So for me, again, I have to go on regulation. I have to base all my opinion on regulation. It wouldn't be fair for me to give my opinion as an individual. So according to the regulations and according to the Pennsylvania DEP, we're in compliance, therefore the water is safe. But as I discussed earlier, if the school decides we want to be proactive and not reactive and start working at getting the permit, getting the system installed prior to the state adopting the EPA rule, obviously that's going to be the best path.
Question. In that photo you had up with the tanks, are the 6 small tanks and the 3 large tanks all part of that system?
That's a great question. It's only the 6 small tanks. So water to disinfect, you need to have contact time with chlorine too. So with water treatment, contact time is a big variable. So those larger tanks in the back are their chlorine contact time to make sure there's no E. coli in the water. It's just the smaller tanks in the foreground that are the PFAS treatment.
And they would be the carbon tanks, or are you talking the other?
That school, we actually did prior to more of the resin being used, more readily used, and now I would lean more toward the resin. That one is carbon.
Oh, this one's
So that one took up a little bit larger footprint. Now that was a smaller school. That one is only 10 gallons per minute. So if we were doing 20 gallons a minute, it would be twice as many tanks. So that's why I would lean toward the resin. And then also, if I could just add, so with the resin, there's less other testing, I'll say it that way. So carbon is out of the ground, and what they can find sometimes is arsenic attached to the carbon. So before we're allowed to put it in service, there's additional testing to make sure there is no arsenic. So it's just more involved with carbon versus the resin.
So, Mr. Crum, can you give a little additional information? Are these the only 2 types of filtration systems currently being engineered specifically for PFAs?
Currently, yes.
And what's the determination on the systems to which you go on, and where are you seeing schools, and do you see schools with similar, running annual averages to us in Gilbertsville that would be comparable?
The school there that we did was over the MCL. So again, back to the guidance from DEP. So when you are over the MCL, you have to put a public notice out to every parent and post it at the school that says, our water exceeds. So then they did provide bottled water and didn't use it really for anything in the school until the system was approved. It took, again, 3-4 months to get approval with DEP for us to install it. So carbon was the first technique that was approved. As I spoke with DEP at that inspection, they were telling me about the resin and how it was becoming more readily used. And then my recent conversations, they said almost everybody is now using the resin. I think it's mostly because of the not being, having to test for arsenic and other parameters like that that could wreak havoc on the water quality.
How does the resin system work? What's the servicing and the filtration and?
So it's a similar thing. It's a passive system in very similar tanks. They don't allow any backwashing of the resin because the backwash water could be contaminated. Then you're sending it back out into the environment. So the resin attracts as much of the PFAS and PFOA that it can, and then you have to have redundancy. So that you see there's 6 tanks there. There's 3 and 3. The water flows to the first bank of 3 tanks, and then there's a test port, and then the second set of tanks. Quarterly, we would be required to test between the 2 tanks, and once there's breakthrough, you have that backup set of tanks there, so you're not serving water that has elevated levels. So once there's breakthrough, you would dispose of the primary set of tanks and replace that media. As far as gallons and how long the resin would last, that would be part of we wouldn't know that until after it's installed.
Yeah, several questions. You have down that it's like $30,000. Is that a year, a month?
So that would be the initial cost of the engineering, the permitting, the installation, the labor, the materials for that system to be installed, and then there would be ongoing testing that would be required, and then the maintenance would be dictated based on the results.
Wouldn't it be probably a lot cheaper just to hook up to the water for Gilbertsville? There's a water.
Oh, public water main?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how much that would cost or where it is. It's certainly something that the district would look into.
I mean, if this is going to be an ongoing issue, it's probably the cheaper route to go is just to hook up to public. But my next, I guess, and I know it's not
okay.
you.
It's okay.
Why is the state not funding schools or businesses? Why are they only funding household? Maybe we should be sending a letter to our.
Well, we've been in touch with DEP, and there is an organization called PennVest, which is the Pennsylvania Infrastructure Investment Authority, to which we've made contact with, which apply granting opportunities for that and do provide some things. Now we're in such the initial stages yet. Once decisions are made, what you're applying in terms of your preventative measures then gets determined through the granting opportunities and so forth. But, I can't answer the question as to the difference necessarily why between us and home individuals. I would assume some of that's more proximity, closer to what they may be deeming eventually a Superfund site over, nearest the landfill, but that we sit far enough away. What do we qualify, or what are we termed in terms of our well, Mr. Crum?
So there's 3 classifications of public water systems in Pennsylvania. There's a transient water system, which is a well that serves the public. It's 25 or more people, but it's like a diner or a convenience store where it's different people all the time. It's just a transient population. And then you have a non-transient, non-community water system, which is 25 or more of the same people every day, like a school. So all schools are classified as a non-transient, non-community water system. And then the third classification is a community water system, which is like a housing development where the people live and use the water for bathing, drinking and everything like that. So non-transient water systems are tested more thoroughly than a transient system, and the community water systems are tested above and beyond a non-transient system.
So I guess, are you going to be looking at what it would cost us to hook up to,
Yeah, we've already put some contacts out to Aqua in terms of what
I
that would
mean,
be.
if it's going to be long-term, that's
Yeah.
got to be the cheaper way to go than paying.
I don't know. I mean, long-term, yes, obviously, there's long-term involved. It's pretty, could be pretty substantial as to where that hookup and the type and whether we qualify for that type of hookup or not. So we've put some of those out to Aqua right now, so we don't have some of those answers for you yet with
And I
regard
guess
to
I
this.
would like the board to put out a thing to the state reps and to both Maloney and Pennycook, and see what they can do to help us.
Yeah.
I mean, because if they're going to help homes, why can't they help us?
Agreed. I think some of the things we learned through this experience is, and this was brought by a number of families, I think one of the things we can do much better with is similar to the way that we place our lead testing, we place our AHERA testing for asbestos on the website and announce that. We can be doing that for our quarterly treatments, right? And what those numbers are, so our public can follow those and maybe understand those a little bit better in terms of that. I think two of the things that we also have to think about, and I would highly recommend, once we get some answers from Aqua, that we move as quickly as we can with a determination of what we need to do at Gilbertsville. We have to also be concerned about what do we do with the other two weld sites, some of which may not have access to public hookup, and what can we do with regard to those sites while there's non-detects there as well. Right now, trying to get ahead of that would be in the best interest of safety for all when it comes to that. So this is some of the new experiences that Jeremy has assisted us with in the past couple of months. Dr. Weir?
Excuse me. What is the overall lifespan of the resin system?
So it's based on flow and the concentrations of the PFAS and PFOA in the water. I can tell you for the carbon system, because that I have concrete data. So that one has been installed since September, and the carbon's still really non-detected to Midport. So I would suspect it's going to last many months, but I really don't know. I know it's not a great answer, but I just don't know. Because it's, the gallons of water for each school, and then the concentrations, and it's really hard.
Yeah, what do you think the cost would be?
I would say for each vessel, you're probably looking at
Well, just the one school. Gilbertsville is the
yeah,
main
for each.
concern.
So there would be redundant systems. So I would say around $4,000 per vessel when the media is spent in that range.
Then that doesn't give me a total of $4,000.
Well, so I'm thinking for a 20-gallon per minute system, we'd have two vessels. We'd have a primary, a lead lag system. So you'd have a primary and a secondary. When the primary is spent, that one gets disposed of. The secondary tank gets moved into the primary position, and then you put a new secondary tank in. I would say 4,000-ish in that range for a whole new tank.
And what's the timeline to have the system installed with everything going through?
I mean, I would say with the DEP, they're a couple months out. So, if you said go ahead and start the application, that would take us a couple weeks to submit. I talked to our engineer today, so I would have, see how busy he is, and he's actually got some openings right now. So we could do the application within 2 weeks, and then the DEP would take a couple months to review. And then when we get that construction permit, we would be able to install the system.
So it would take a lot longer to put water into this.
Oh, for sure.
We're talking years.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, this is something where it's months, not years.
Yes. Thank you.
Of course.
So could I ask for clarification? So the $30,000 would be for setting it up.
It would be for us to do the application for DEP. It's called a construction permit. So we would do the permit application. Our engineer would sign, seal, and submit that to DEP. So that's included. And then we would install the system. So it's the resin, the vessels, the labor, the piping, the materials. After it's installed, the Pennsylvania DEP would come out, they would inspect it, and then they would give us what's called an operations permit. So that $30,000 estimate would be from beginning to end. The school would have a treatment system.
But then to replace the canisters,
Of the resin. So the resin gets vacuumed out, and then we replenish it with new resin.
and that's 4,000.
I would say 4,000 in that range.
And how often would that?
That's the part that I don't know. I don't know how often that would need to be done.
And that's just because it's the resin is the replacement of the resin is based off of the usage of water, correct?
It is. It's based off the test results. So quarterly, the DEP would require us to test the untreated water at the midport between the two vessels and after both vessels. So the monitoring would be dictating how, when the media needs to be replaced.
So would we be talking years or months?
I would think months, like 6 months, year. It wouldn't be years, I don't believe.
Well, we only have school 9 months.
Yeah, true. Like I said, the other district that we did that system right there, that's still the original carbon, and it's been in since September before school started, and it's still perfectly fine. But it would be really wrong of me to think that exact system is going to be the same at Gilbertsville, because there's other negative ions in the water that could be impacting the life expectancy, because it's not going to know, oh, I'm only taking out PFAS. It's any negative ion. So if there were nitrates in the water, which, again, that's tested, it's not over the MCL, because otherwise we'd be talking about that tonight. But then it could be taking those out too. So then that might use it up quicker. It would just be really wrong of me to give you an exact life expectancy of it.
And these full systems themselves, most of which are the tanks themselves, right? The resin tanks are really most of the operating systems to that of mechanical pieces.
Yeah, fortunately, there's very little.
Yeah.
There's very little maintenance other than the media, because there's no working parts, there's no electronics. It's like I said, it's a passive system. The water just flows through it. So it is nice that there's very little regular maintenance to it. It's just the testing and then replacing the media as needed.
I'm pretty sure the school has a water softening system
do.
in it. How does that work in conjunction with this then?
It's actually important. The resin manufacturer would not want more than 7 grains of hardness going to the resin, because it's harder on the resin. So they recommend to have softening before it. So the school already has that. So that's why, again, when Mr. David Heiser asked me why to steer toward the resin versus the carbon, if you didn't already have a water softener, maybe it would be better to do carbon, because then you wouldn't need as much pre-treatment. But you already have the pre-treatment, so I feel it's going to be more cost-effective to use the resin.
Other questions from the board? So I think one of the things that we will try to get information to you as quickly as possible is in regards to which is a great question, is to a public hookup, trying to get length of time period that would be cost and as best we can and as swiftly we can through Aqua. I do think there's going to be, as some people have suggested, that a pretty long time span for that to be accomplished. But we'll try to get and identify that for you as quickly as possible. I would recommend, we have detection. We've monitored this. It's been, other than one quarterly test that was right up just above the MCL. All the remaining have been around 6. So we've got a constant now. So we see detection, we see it, it's there. Mr. Crumb's recommendation is that it can be handled and really drawn down below the 4 MCL, and I would say pretty quickly to be able to act on that and to be able to do that pretty quickly. Our drive is to be 0. I don't know if that can be accomplished through these types of systems, whether it removes all of that or at least reduces it significantly enough that it's below the MCL, but that we move as quickly as it can. And like I said, we also have other considerations that should be made with our other two weld systems as well, and incorporated. So we'll work with our facilities director, Mr. Bramble, and getting some of those answers as quickly as possible to you. But I really would ask that you take some thought, consideration into what's being shared tonight for us to be able to act as quickly. And, we're taking this extremely seriously with regard to that, knowing that, and I've heard, that, well, it doesn't have to happen until 2031. We recognize that, but we want to certainly do what's right in the best interest of everyone's safety and so forth, so that we're providing and doing everything we can to provide the best water treatment that we can.
Could you get us a better breakdown of what you're talking the cylinders and you're talking those other white things in the back, correct?
The white tanks in the back are not part of the system. That's all part of their existing chlorination system for disinfection. So it's just those smaller cylinders in the front. I could get a more specific cost breakdown for resin and carbon, and also the exact number of tanks, just so you can kind of see it. I have schematics that we could throw together that just kind of show the train and how it would look.
Yeah, I think we need a better breakdown so we know what the cost is going to be and an approximate time. Because even in the summertime, that school is being used, I think.
There's always water.
Not as heavy.
Correct. There's going to be variations, and we have when you have a couple weeks off, so it varies in time. I don't know that we can know that for sure, but I think if you calculated a flow that would be average for what we distribute, we should be able to probably come up with an estimated idea of how much replacement cycle you would need, $4,000 a canister, and how often that would have to be replaced on a 5-year basis or something.
So some of the resin manufacturers, they can, if we send them a sample of the water, a lot of times they'll do an analysis of the water to see what other ions in the water would impact the life expectancy of the resin, and then they could give us a better breakdown. So we can talk about that too, to see if that's something that we want to do so that we can have a better idea. Because like I said, that any other negative ions in the water will impact the life expectancy.
I will try to get the board that information as quickly as possible. We'll continue to place this as agenda items, and hopefully coming to a decision soon, so that we can act on some of this as quickly as possible. Try to get that information to you, off hours here, so that we can measure that. So, any other questions for Mr. Crum?
I don't know if this is in your wheelhouse. If your kids were there, would you want us to supply bottled water?
I'm probably not a good one to ask about bottled water. I see it all here. I'm just not a fan of bottled water. It's not tested as regularly as our public water systems. So at least at Gilbertsville, it's being tested and we know what's in it. A lot of the bottled water, it's not really regulated and tested as frequently. And then you also have microplastics and things like that are in bottled water. So I would rather not have bottled water for my kids. I'm comfortable saying that water meets the DEP regulation, so I would most likely lean toward yes, using that water, because they're not sitting there guzzling gallons of water. Again, I'm not really for water fountains either. The bottle fillers I would use, and I would feel better knowing what's in the water than bottled water. That's my opinion.
Mr. Crum, I want to thank you for coming out this evening.
You're welcome.
We'll be in conversation, no doubt, tomorrow. Thank you. So that takes us down to item B, and we traditionally have had donation list at the end of discussion information. We decided to place it upward because we do have an additional foundation grant that we want to share with the board and see how many grant opportunities have connected this at BASH and within our technology education department. So I'm just going to read, and I won't read these to you, but you can see those listed there. We do have a number of donations for this month, many of which are through the Education Foundation. And you can see there a number of microphones for our telecommunications department in grades 9 through 12 at Bash. New Hanover PTA has donated motivational posters. That should not be Stutterfly, but Shutterfly, which did make a monetary donation, which delivers a lot of pictures. But this is for a book vending machine at Boyertown Elementary. The Ministerial Association, a donation for breakfast items and supplies for our FCA club students. Hereford Mennonite Church donation, $100 for food and supplies, again, for our students. And we have two rather large donations by the Rose F. Kuzer and the Roger L. Daniels and Gloria F. Daniels Charitable Foundation that I do want to make you a little bit more aware of, as these are significant donations in sponsoring the development of a program. So I'm going to ask if Kaylin Bartman, our Director of Special Education, if she could step to the podium to just explain a little bit to you in regards to, if you do choose to accept these donations, what they are initiating in regards to some programs, and titled the PAYS programs, a little different, not P-A-Y-S, but P-A-E-S.
Sure. The Practical Assessment Exploration System is a research-based assessment system that identifies aptitude for community-based employment, functional skills, interest and work behavior strengths for barriers to success. Students would clock in and work in nearly 300 jobs in 5 different career areas that are based upon typical skills found at community-based job locations. Students find out what jobs they're good at and what job skills they like to do. PAYS exposes students to hundreds of essential work and life skills. The goal of the PAYS program is to provide task-based learning and data-driven results in order to determine what an individual can do on their own. And this would be for our students in special education, to really help them with their post-secondary transition goals. It would be housed at the high school, and it would be a really great program. The IU has a PAYS lab that we do send some of our students to, and they've been very successful. But to have this donation would be incredible.
Mrs. Bartman, can you just explain a little bit more nuts and bolts to what the program? So if I walked into a classroom, into a lab setting, what am I looking at?
Sure. If you walked in, there would be different boxes of community things that the students would be working on. There were also iPads with simulations. Students would be working individually because, again, we want to really assess their job skills, because as they are working on their transition goals, which is why this would be placed at the high school, we want them to have the most success as they are looking towards what they want to do in the future. So this would really help them with getting that hands-on experience and exposure.
Ms. Nyman?
I think it's a great thing. My big concern is this like a once and done thing? And is it going to last for a year? Would it be enough to do for a year?
Yes. In looking at the funds that we would be receiving, this would last us with programs and things for approximately 5 years.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Yes, it's absolutely fantastic. I'm very, very excited.
So with any type of donation, right, we always want to present to the board any strings attached. So one of the strings you said, after 5 years, for us to maintain and continue a program, if we feel like this program is resulting in the types of things that we expect it to do, that would be something that we as a district would need to fund.
Correct.
As part of the budgeting cycle and so forth. So this, certainly want to make the board aware of those components. Mrs. Bartman, correct me if I'm wrong, there's no staffing pieces that are tied to this. This is all equipment-based, computer-based, lab-based types of items. And can you share what some of those items are, what they look like and resources look like?
Sure. I mean, we are really working with, of course, individual students with their individual needs. So what it looks at is there are some iPad-based programs that they can work on clocking in, clocking out, working on some of those really fundamental job skills that we see out in the community. We do have the BEST program that I know you are all aware of, where our students are going into the community, but this just provides them another opportunity to work on those job-based skills. So they would be students that are throughout our high school that could go to this lab and truly be independent in learning some more of those skills.
Would this be something, though, that we could go back to these people and say, hey, it was a great success, can you help fund it again?
There's always that possibility, yes. I don't know in terms of what their assets are and if they would have more money in regards to that. There's always those opportunities to do that. Some plan to exhaust their funds and so forth and not make them reoccurring, but others do not.
Sounds great.
Is there a way of collecting data to show the impact, whether this new system is, what the benefit is over the 5-year period?
Of course. I think we can look at the transition goals that are outlined in the student's IEP to see how we are meeting them, and we can definitely look at collecting some data. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Martin. And just listing some of the others there, mentioning some of the others, again, the Foundation for Boyertown, who's making a generous donation of 4 book vending machines for 4 of our elementary schools. I think some of the board members have seen those vending machines. They look like a true vending, almost a candy vending machine in which books can be purchased through a token system. We have some of those out in Boyertown Elementary already, I believe, and we have one at Washington Elementary as well. And they come highly regarded from our principals and our staff who have utilized them, and a real incentive-based system for our students to read and an interest level. The books are what we need to purchase and recycle those books through there as those tokens go in, the book comes out, the student takes that book, the book becomes theirs, and we replenish those. So part of that is a recycling that we've talked with our PTA groups and through some of our building budgets as well. Ms. Nyman?
Will that make one at every elementary then?
We are working on the last elementary, which is still absent of one, which is Earl Elementary. We got her now? So Earl Elementary is going to be the last.
So each
elementary will have
one, or do some have?
We'll
more?
have one.
That's fantastic. I think
It
that's
is.
a good incentive for our
Yes.
students.
Yeah, it's been a generous donation on behalf of the Education Foundation for helping to fund those, and they've been met with great success. And we have the St. James Lutheran Church donation, giant gift cards there, again, for families experiencing food insecurity. So these donations will be placed on our legislative meeting in 2 weeks for your approval, your consideration and hopeful approval of those. There is one other grant that we wanted to present this evening. And again, this is the Foundation for Boyertown Education. We have Mr. Andrew Shope, who is one of our BASH Tech Ed teachers, who has been working closely with the Ed Foundation, and through their generous donations has been the recipient of a number of other large types of pieces of equipment. And we wanted to show this evening, we invited Mr. Schoaf here, and I see he has some supporting cast of department members here with him this evening to show a little bit and display of how do all of these things work together in improving the learning for all of our students. So Mr. Schoaf, thank you for coming out tonight, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. David Heiser. I appreciate that. I now see why you group the donation presentations after the Doomsday Water presentation. So thank you for that. Not a whole lot of room there for jokes, but thank you. Good night or good evening, everybody. I am excited to be here. I do have some exciting news.
Mr. Schoaf, can you just turn your microphone on?
Sure. I apologize. I have some great news to share, some things that are happening in the technology and engineering department. I'll be honest, it's been a while since I've been in front of the board. My wife was sure to remind me before I left tonight that the last time I was here I had a little more hair and a little less weight. And I said, thank you, sweetheart, for that boost of confidence. But again, for anybody that may be new or just doesn't know me, my name is Andrew Schoaf. I'm a technology and engineering education teacher in the district. I've been with the district for 18 years. 9 of those years were spent at Junior High East, and 9 of those years have been spent at the high school. Currently, I'm still domiciled in the high school. I've served as a TSA advisor volunteer for 15 years and currently still serve as a TSA advisor mentor at this point. One of the things I wanted to do this evening is I thought it would be prudent if we just took a look at how the classes in the high school tech ed department are structured to kind of gain a little better understanding of the need for this donation and some of the equipment that I'll highlight a little bit later. For those of you that don't know, the graphic that you see there is available in the program of studies. And this is something that we give to all of our students to try to help guide them a little bit in their choices for classes in the high school. The department created this graphic. We're very proud of it. We do feel that it's a good guide for the diverse student population that we have, and it really helps them to find a fit in tech ed regardless of their interests and past experiences. It's broken down into 4 pathways basically, and those pathways are designed to try to follow some of the realms that are within tech ed. So for example, we have a communication pathway where one staff member focuses on things like digital media, photography, print media, things like that. We have a production pathway, which would be a little bit more tactile and traditional in scope. Our engineering pathway would be for those students who are a little bit more cerebral and are fairly certain they'll end up in an engineering world at some point. And then we also have a design and build pathway, which tries to really incorporate the elements of product ideation and practical application and things of that nature. Each pathway is structured in a way that has a introductory level class or classes, an intermediate level class or classes, an advanced, as well as a super advanced that we call the capstone or the tech R&Ds. It's not mentioned in the graphic, but I thought it was worth noting that we also host the Technology Student Association or the TSA Club, and that's also available to any students regardless of their enrollment in tech ed classes. If we focus for a minute on the design and build pathway, this is really my piece of the pie. This is the area of instruction that I'm most responsible for in the department. And I just wanted to kind of paint a picture a little bit of what we do and the students that would benefit from this donation, this equipment. So typically, my schedule will have about 6 to 7 sections of class per day. Each class would be enrolled with about 20 students. Coupled that with about 100 student average enrollment in TSA, any given day of the week, there's about 120 to 240 students that are coming through my particular classroom. So that's quite an exposure, to the population. And I realize that those numbers may not be as meritorious as you're hoping for. So I thought it was worth noting that, in the spirit of course selection, if you don't know, our students just received their course selection cards for next year. And if you took a look at the numbers from the 24-25 school year, 36% of the BASH population signed up for at least one of the electives offered by only 2 department members. That number grows to about 50% when you look at or examine the department as a whole. And I do think that is a little bit more applaudable. And I think that also speaks volumes to the desire of the students to take our classes. And I also think that shows that we're doing great things, within the department to keep their interest there. I think it's also important that I explain, the story behind the design and build pathway so that you really have the big picture understanding. It really begins with the districts pivoting from the junior high system to the middle school model about a decade ago. I found myself being moved into the high school, which at the time already had a full complement of tech ed teachers. And so it presented an opportunity to craft an experience for the students that was going to be authentic and really founded in real world problem solving. And so to make sure that we were staying on par and staying aligned with industry, One of the things that I did in the days before COVID was I went around to some of the local businesses and surveyed what they were doing. So I talked to some folks at Penflex. I talked to Sharon Talon at BC Fabrication just up the street. Talked to some folks at DECA and just asked them, what are you doing? What are you looking for in a graduate? And what do you need from us in the future? And I was pleased with the fact that a lot of what we were already doing as a department was on par with with what was going on in industry. But I think one of the concerning things I heard over and over again was that they weren't able to find they couldn't get workers. They were struggling to fill positions, and that speaks to a greater problem in the country. If anybody's tried to call a plumber or an electrician, you already know. The country itself has a deficit of 550,000 plumbers right now, and that number grows about 44,000 every year till the end of the decade. Worse than that would be welders. If you know Mike Rowe from the TV show Dirty Jobs, his foundation, the Mike Rowe Works, they try to fill the skills gap a little bit, and they work closely with the American Welder Society, and they like to report, or I don't know that they like to report, but they do report that right now there's 300,000 to 400,000 welder positions that are open, and that number is expected to grow by 90,000 for a decade, with the average American welder being 55 years old. So one of the things that I wanted to do when making an experiential class for these students was I wanted to make sure that we weren't limiting them to the trades. The trades certainly need to be championed, and I think we do a good job of that. But I also wanted to make sure that we were staying rigorous and relevant while preparing them to be career or college ready. And the design and build pathway, I think, really homogenizes all of that and makes it all come together, so to speak. We are able to take our SolidWorks software, which is a 3D modeling software, and we're able to pair that with some pretty incredible equipment that's been purchased through the Foundation for Boyertown Education. So in talking with those different companies out in industry, we wanted to make sure that we were modernizing our facilities and specifically this particular pathway to make sure that we were staying on track with what they were doing. So beginning in 2022, we purchased a CNC plasma cutter through Lincoln Electric with a 4-foot by 4-foot capability. We also purchased a CNC Wazer water jet. We recently purchased a CNC press brake, and we also purchased a CNC laser engraver. And while these big ticket items are all CNC controlled, that means computer numeric control. For the record, that's the computer. You program the code, and the computer makes the cuts and the processes. But these big ticket items, these are just the heavy hitters from the foundation. We also were able to upgrade and improve, our table saws and our band saws and a lot of our traditional equipment like drill presses and sandblasters and things like that. So all told, in my tenure of being with the district, I've secured a total of about $250,000 of outside funding to help keep our program relevant for our students. So my focus tonight is a machine that I feel there's a real need for in this particular pathway. The machines that I just highlighted a minute ago, they're great for what they do, but they're a little limited in their abilities in the sense that they mainly process flat materials. So things like sheet metal and various materials like that, and both ferrous and non-ferrous. And I do want to make sure that I clarify. The goal in the design and build pathway is not to prepare anybody specifically to be a welder or a metal master, so to speak. Metal is just the material, it's the medium that I use in that particular pathway. So if you're familiar with tech ed or industrial arts or shop class, there's really four ways that we output. So there's wood, there's metal, there's polymer, and there's inks. And for the design and build pathway, it's metal for us. So right now, when we process our materials to build the projects that the students have designed, one of the bottlenecks that we run into is the fact that structural steels exist, but we have no efficient way to process them. So structural steels would be things like round bar, tubing, C-channel, angle iron. We can process them right now in a traditional way, and it's very time consuming, and that's a real concern for a class with 20 students and only a semester long. So we were looking to try to make that process a little bit more efficient, and we settled on the Scotchman DO70 iron worker. So the Scotchman iron worker is capable of processing those particular materials through a series of punches and dies and shears and things like that. The reason that we chose this specific machine is trifold, basically. So first of all, it's built in the United States. It's actually manufactured in Phillips, South Dakota. I toured the plant myself. I watched them build them. They're super robust. Their customer service is great. But more importantly, it's a dual operator model. So historically speaking, an iron worker is a single operator machine. But this machine has twin pumps, which means two students, can operate this machine simultaneously. And I think that does add to the excitement of the class a little bit. When you're up, you're moving around, you're working. It's not just another quotidian experience, like in other schools. This particular iron worker costs about $38,000. That does include freight from Phillips, South Dakota. That's about an hour and a half east of Mount Rushmore, if anybody's ever been there. The donation also includes about $4,000 for some additional materials and tubing and steel and things like that to process. The warranty is 3 years, parts only, and the service life is it's rated at 30 years. I do think that number's a little crooked in our situation because, given the inherent schedule of school being off in the summers, obviously, I think that number is probably more like double. That machine is certainly going to outlast my career and probably the term of everybody on the board here right now. So I'm confident we'll certainly get our money's worth out of that. I do try to make sure that any equipment we purchase has a service life of about 30 years. And I think we're doing a fine job of meeting that requirement. When we purchase a large machine like this, there's always the question of future expenses always comes up. It's kind of like owning a vehicle. There's always going to be some unforeseen maintenance along the way. But one of the things that we can prepare for would be routine maintenance. So right now, the daily greasing and the occasional rotation of shears and punches and the replacement of those as they wear out would really be the only foreseeable expenses. There's not a lot of consumables on this particular machine. It's just a worker. That's what it does. So, with that, I'd like to thank the board again for their continued support and the foundation for their consistent investment in our students. And I would welcome the opportunity to answer any questions for anybody. Thank you.
So, Mr. Schoaf, why don't you take a second and just introduce the folks that are here as part of your department members? And
Sure.
Yeah.
So on the right is Mr. Kennedy. He's our department leader, or our elder department member. And then we have Allie Baker and Ron Flicker. Allie teaches our communications pathway. Mr. Flicker teaches our engineering pathway, and both are current TSA advisors at the high school. And I appreciate them being here.
Well, I appreciate you giving us the overall experience as to, the donation is important, but how they all connect and interconnect into the curriculum and into the pathways that we have established. So for the board, again, you heard some of the things. So some of these larger ticket items, we just want to make you aware of additional strings that will become your responsibility as these assets, while they're donations, they become the district's assets, and want to make sure that we're maintaining them. There may be some costs and structures, and I think Mr. Schoaf has thoroughly explained those things to all of you. And so this would be something, again, with all the other grants that we had just reviewed, that we would be asking for your consideration of approval at our next meeting in a couple of weeks. Did you have something?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what's the power for that machine require?
Sure. So
Is it phase?
This machine is can be configured however the district sees fit. So I would defer to Mr. Bramble on that. Our building is 208 three-phase,
Okay.
but the machine can be ordered from 110 to 480. And,
Okay. I was just wondering.
Sure.
Anything else from the board? Again, thank you, Mr. Schoaf.
Right.
Appreciate
Thank you
it.
very much. I appreciate it.
So that takes us down to our next item, item D, the planetarium / learning dome presentation. I'm going to ask if Mr. Stout who has taken the lead on this investigation over nearly the past year as it relates to the space at Middle School East. And so, Mr. Stout, I'm going to ask if you take it over right now.
Thank you, Dr. David Heiser. I'd like to just reflect back on the past year and a half and remind the board that if you think back to, I believe it might be in October of 24, we actually had a board meeting at the Middle School East and had the opportunity to visit the planetarium. And I think it was an eye-opening experience for everyone on the board just to kind of reflect, and some of you reminisce on your experiences with the Learning Dome. Not too long, or I should say the planetarium, not too long after that, I believe it might have been Washington Elementary School, we had put information in front of the board to talk really about what it might take to resurrect, for lack of a better term, the planetarium, and really think about, what kind of process would take place. So over the course of the past year, we've worked diligently, and tonight I'm pleased to introduce. We have from the Foundation for Boyertown Education, we have Mr. Greg Erb, and we have Jamie Fox. We also have Mrs. Ruth Deeroff from the Stellar Dreams nonprofit organization. And if you can think back to the Washington presentation, we have JT Town, if you want to wave there. JT Town, I say came to us from the sky. She had heard about the district's desire to really investigate what it might take to open the planetarium, and comes with us with, I will say this, and I'm saying it with not enough justice, with a wealth of planetarium knowledge. So she's given us the opportunity to do a lot of investigating for costs, for equipment. She's given Mrs. Fox and I the opportunity to go actually see a planetarium in action and really kind of get our feet wet with what has taken place. So I brought them to the table tonight, as you see in the presentation, to really be able to maybe answer questions that I, as the assistant superintendent within the Boyertown Area School District, might not be able to answer. So I just want to start with a few pictures from our current planetarium. They're just an overview of where we are. This planetarium, as has been noted, has been shut down for numerous years. And in the investigation that really has taken place, there are some obvious reasons that it might have gotten shut down X amount of years ago, just because the cost and the ability for us to kind of modernize the space really was not a prioritization of prior boards or the district at that particular time. So if you look at, I just gave a quick overview of pictures here to give people a perspective if you haven't seen it. On the left-hand side is the projection system, which I will say that when you look at the projection system here compared to a modern projection system, this does look like it's from the moon mission back in the 60s to really get us to where we need to be. And the control panel there, which you see the front end, you'll see the back end in a second, is really very antiquated based upon what current technology has. This is a podium that was built in the planetarium to really help to have the presenter within the planetarium actually do presentations and give the information to our students and outside organizations. My favorite picture of all, you really see the seating and the wear that has taken when you're in a planetarium. And if you remember, board members, that the lighting in the planetarium is not very robust, so you don't really get to see things such as this. But when you put a flash on a camera and you take a picture, you can kind of see kind of the wear that has taken place. So as you see seating for up to 75 people, part of our recommendation to resurrect this planetarium would be to really take everything out and start from scratch. And you're going to see cost structure of what would it be entailed to potentially do that. This is a front picture looking out across the planetarium, and again, looking at kind of the antiquated nature of the technology that's in the room. So as Mrs. Petrie will be proud of me, I used artificial intelligence to come up with just somewhat of a mission statement. It's kind of a heavy mission statement, but what is the purpose of our planetarium? And we do have the information here that it was opened, I believe, in 1973 based upon the information that I looked at. But it really, at one point in time, it was a highlight of the Boyertown Area School District. So what do we need to do to potentially resurrect this planetarium to make it a regional hub for STEM education and community engagement? and we've kind of come up with a pseudonym called the Learning Dome to help us to move forward with this. And most importantly, if you look about 3/4 of the way down, it really is not. People think of the planetarium as looking at astronomy and astrology and the science that goes along with that. But what we have learned in this process is so much more of that. It's all facets of science, technology, and Mrs. Fox and I actually got to see an art show in a planetarium. And when you can see art that is highlighted in the planetarium dome, it's amazing what those pieces can look like. So again, with the help of Mrs. Town and the expertise that goes along with that, the information that you will see throughout this presentation is really an option 1 and an option 2. So option 1 is a more costly projection system that goes to support our planetarium. Option 2 is a less costly planetarium system. And when consulting with Mrs. Town, I will say to you that I'm not so sure. You think if you buy the more expensive projection system, you might think you're getting more out of it. In consultation with Mrs. Town, we may be fine going with a lesser projection system just because of what it provides to us. So that's some of the investigation that we need to do here in this process. Mrs. Town has also kind of negotiated with some of the organizations out there and got us the best price we possibly can get as far as what our projections would be. So option 1 and option 2 is how we'll cycle through the presentation. As I purposefully put the chair picture into the presentation, you see here the cost for, if we think about clearing out all of the mounted seating that is in the planetarium, we would look to have stackable chairs that are movable so that we would be able to use this Learning Dome for more than just the purpose of just staying stationary. We get to use it as more of an operational space, and you can see the costs that go along with that. And we'd be talking approximately $27,500. You'll see a summation of all of the costs in a little bit, so just tried to highlight each area. The facility cost to really, these are projections. We have not gotten specific engineers, or I should say contractors, to come out. This is based upon looking at what current projections might cost us. It's a demo, which would be clearing the room and disposing of most items. We're projected about $15,000. The dome, as we had stated to the board earlier, it does have asbestos in it, and what we would be looking to do is encapsulate and paint that dome so that we don't have to worry about it. Right now, it's checked every 3 years, and we're in a safe place. But the last thing we would want to do is have to shut down or have to kind of close our planetarium to do this work. So we tried to get a projection of what this would cost for that to happen, and we were projected about $40,000. And what I learned from Mrs. Town is that, you just don't go paint like a white paint. There's a specialized gray, if I'm not mistaken, that really helps to highlight and capture the image that's projected on the dome. The next piece is really the preparation of the space with new or required conduit, power outlets, Ethernet ports. That would be part of the running of the information that's in and the system that's in the Learning Dome Planetarium. And the last thing is a cove lighting trough that would go through to be rebuilt. The LED lighting, the lighting that's currently in there is, again, very antiquated like the rest of the information or systems that are in the Learning Dome, so that would be approximately $6,000. So the current cost to really think about overhauling the actual space would be about $76,000. Mrs. Nyman.
Can any of that be done by our facilities people?
It potentially could be. It's just a matter of, do we have the current capacity to take our facilities people out of what they're currently doing. My recommendation would be that we should be looking at doing this on the outside, because this is going to be a somewhat of a daunting project, and to take our facility staff away from what their current responsibilities are, we're tight where we are right now. So my recommendation would not be to do that. I mean, anything could be done by our current staff. It's just a matter would they have the time to be able to do it.
If I may, there are limitations under the public school code as to the extent to which we can utilize our maintenance staff, and to the I don't know the exact cost of what this will take, so we may be limited by doing that anyway.
Okay.
So that may require just a public bid.
Thank you, Mr. Sultanic.
think you also need to be certified to remove or encapsulate the asbestos.
Yeah, and that would be a specialized component of the project for sure. Yep.
We will not be doing that with our maintenance staff.
That
I'll make
we would
that very
not
clear.
be doing. Mr. Sultanic said so we will not be doing that. So this is, as we look forward, and you're going to see a slide shortly, what those slides up until this point are really the cost to get the Learning Dome up and running. This slide here is the cost of the projected cost for what it would be, that's the recurring fees to maintain the Learning Dome to be moving forward on an annual basis. So when we put the information into this slide, we put the cost of one full-time teacher, because we would be looking at a full-time teacher who would be supporting the Learning Dome during the course of a day. Transportation, I just put out a number to Quigley Bus Service and projected 2 round trips per day for approximately 150 days. And you'll see the calendar a little bit later on in our committee meeting today, but we have 180 school days. So I just took 15 days on each end that, we're doing some other things that perhaps we're not transporting kids to the Learning Dome or planetarium. But again, that's kind of just a projection to hold a line item number. And miscellaneous is that based upon the information that came from our projection system costs, it would be about a $12,000 annual investment to do the maintenance agreement that would go along with our purchase. Now, there may be a year or two that we can add into the initial cost and negotiate that, but I just wanted to make sure we had the information here that would be, what would the Boyertown Area School District be requiring to pay for during the course of an annual recurring fee, and we were project about $112,500 per year. So what does this look like when you put it all together and put it into, option one? If you remember back to the first slide with the one projection system versus option two, which is the second projection system, all of the capital costs, which you have copies of this presentation in your packet for the week, would be slides 9, 10, and 11. Option one is $467,635. Option two is $379,500 for the capital costs to get that up and running. And then the recurring costs, like I shared with you before, projected would be about $112,500. And at the bottom, you can see the total estimates of what that would cost for us to get this up and running for the first year, which would include the cost of the instructor. As this process has evolved, the Foundation for Boyertown Education has really worked diligently. I have the opportunity to sit as a guest on the foundation board on a monthly basis and talk about all those grants that you graciously approve for the district. This has been an ongoing conversation as to what is the ability for the Foundation for Boyertown Education to help support and commit money to. So they have been willing to, moving forward, commit $250,000 and have asked the district to see if we, instead of taking that huge chunk out of their excess funds, or I should say collected funds, they asked if we could use $50,000 for a 5-year consecutive years. We would work on an agreement with the foundation to really come up with a plan of what this would look like, but their overall donation would be $250,000. You can see that they are a nonprofit, a 501c3. They will continue to seek grant opportunities in this process. They also asked for the Education Foundation Learning Dome to have naming rights to potentially gain visibility for the foundation so that they can, promote the potential to continue to collect funds for our schools. And you can see from Mr. Schoaf's presentation today, the amount of support they've been able to provide has been exceptional. They've asked for a 10-year minimum commitment for continuous implementation of the Learning Dome planetarium. We shut down the planetarium in the past because of just the ability for the upkeep that had taken place and the inability for the district to commit funds for that, but they've asked for a 10-year minimum continuous implementation. And we would also be working on an initial legal agreement with BASD to put all of this into official writing. The next nonprofit is Stellar Dream, and that's Mrs. Deeroff, who has come to the table to help support. Her initial donation would be approximately $100,000, and be working on what that terms of that annual contribution would be, and I have TBD there, if it would be a one-time, if it would be over time. She would also be working on a 501c3 fundraising nonprofit. Also continuing to seek out grant opportunities to collect more funds. The difference between the Education Foundation and the Stellar Dream nonprofit is really the Stellar Dream was looking, and which is a huge help, is really looking at us to conduct and run after school programs. So as you think about, the evening activities and things that many of you have had experiences to partake in, they would be looking at running those programs with their own, support to keep the community with the ability to access their learning dome. They also, I skipped over. What we would do as the Boyertown Area School District, we took what we typically charge for Wi-Fi, facilities use, custodial work, things such as that, and kind of put it all together for a lump sum. So we decided that $150 per hour is what we would charge for the use of the facility based upon those after school types of activities. They also had asked for a 10-year minimum continuous implementation process, and with anything we would look to implement a legal agreement with the Boyertown Area School District. So with all of that being said, it's a lot of information to process. I do have the representation from each nonprofit here, as well as our planetarium experts, should you have any questions. So I put that out there. The timeline, as far as what we'd be looking at, is October 24, 25. Like we discussed, you had an initial visit. We had our school board workshop today. We are looking at potentially bringing this to you for the January 27th School Board of Directors legislative meeting for a vote to move forward. We would be targeting, based upon the availability of outside contractors, with demolition starting in the spring, summer of 26. And the hope would be at some time during the fall and winter to have the Learning Dome up and running. So these are the next steps. We would be looking at the consideration and vote. The considerations are really the recurring expenditure slide on slide 12, the estimated $112,500 from our general budget, which would be the annual recurring expenses, and really just thinking about upfront as the foundation as well as the Stellar Dreams are not giving us all of the money. There would be a commitment to approximately $300,000 to $400,000 from capital costs that would be us for the ability to actually start and have the planetarium up and running at the start of the 26-27 school year, or I should say fall to winter of 26-27. Now I have my questions. You can see some of the pictures up here are really that of modern planetariums, and you can kind of see the amazing imagery that comes from the new projection systems. It's quite a vast difference than what the current projection system in the Middle School East Planetarium shows. So, any questions?
Can you re-explain the transportation, the projected 2 round trips per day? Is this from the elementary schools? From
yeah,
middle school west?
That's a great question, and I completely just put numbers out there to project. So what it came down to is the cost of $70 per day would be the Quigley fee to transport back and forth. We would have availability for bus drivers because it's the middle of the day. We definitely have a shortage of bus drivers, so that's not an issue. I was a principal in the district for many years when we did have field trips to the planetarium on a daily basis. My kindergarten class, when we had different grade levels. But what I put out here was 2 round trips. So I thought there'd be 2 groups of students during the course of a day that would visit the planetarium. So there'd be a late morning group that would go to midday. They would get taken back to the school. Then there'd be another group that would be midday to the earlier afternoon piece. So I was thinking of 2 round trips to the schools with the cost of about $70 per day is what we were projecting that. So again, that is truly an estimate of what that would look like, but just to have a placeholder as far as a number would go. But yeah. Mr. Brophy.
Okay, is this system upgradable? Would it be?
Mrs. Town, would you like to come to the podium?
I
Yes,
figured you were the
please.
one- I figured you were the one to ask that question to.
Digital planetariums are computer-based, and they also employ one or two digital cinema video projectors. And yeah, about every 10 to 12 to 13 years, one side of that system, the computer control side, and the projectors need to be upgraded.
I think what I'm looking more is, I'm going to use the word app because everybody understands what apps are.
Software side,
So
not the
if-
hardware side.
So if something comes up, like a new app,
Yes.
is it easily upgradable, or once it's set, is that what you have?
It would depend on the system, and so that would be an excellent question for the vendors. But generally, I would say that, I think the answer would be that there are some free softwares that are available at intervals. There are lots of shows that are like dome documentaries. A lot of those are free, and then some of those can be $5,000 to $8,000 for those, to bring in those for, let's say, a 5-year license for running those shows. But yeah, it's upgradable. It's possible that there would be, if a company puts a lot of work into a new software, like if they've just done a new software on architecture, the company may say, if you want this architecture software added, there would be, a fee. I've never seen a fee more than $5,000 or $8,000 for a software upgrade.
I thought when we talked before, there was something about a sharing program between the different planetariums around. Is that
Well,
still
those
there?
you can share things that you make. So if you have students that make a show or a unit or something, they can, that can be shared with other schools, and other schools might have, if they have a similar projection and software system to yours, then, pieces can be imported and exported and shared.
The same would go with software then, correct?
Right, but a lot of times the software, the license is just for your location. So like some of those dome documentaries, if you license the documentary, you can't give that to another school. It's licensed for your site. And some of the main software that comes with the system is, when you buy it, you're accepting that it's just going to stay there at the school. Mm-hmm.
From your experience with different planetariums, does $150 an hour sound like a proper charge?
Well, some schools don't charge anything. They charge sometimes for meetings, community meetings. Sometimes they charge if a company or corporation wants to come in for a custom showing. And a lot of times a museum planetarium would charge much more than that. But schools don't generally charge as much as museums do. But you can charge what you want. I mean, you can charge what you can get, what the market will bear. And then a lot of times schools don't have a mechanism for taking the money in. So, I mean, that's something to think about. Maybe you do here.
So it's pretty much a mishmash.
It's a mishmash.
Okay, it's pretty much, that's fine.
Yep.
Okay, thanks. All right.
In
I have-
19,
okay,
oh,
one- just
I'm
one-
sorry.
Just one more.
Go ahead.
I saw the thing about naming rights. I would have to hear more from legal in discussing naming rights. I'm not sure we've done that before, or what requirements are around it, and what process we'd have to go to do that. I'm sure that's just a thing where you can say, yep, you got it. I don't think it works that way. But just so I think we need to discuss that.
Yeah, we can stick by it. We do have that in policy. So we can look at, we've looked through that policy as it relates, and it really does give the autonomy back to the board, depending on significant value, what it brings back to the community, and things of that nature. It's a broad policy with regard to that.
But we have two donors.
Correct.
So that had to be a discussion of it.
Yeah, and there's stipulations from the one donor in regards to that.
Yeah, but the second donor could also put the same stipulation in. So I think there's got to be a little more talk about that. I'm not saying yes or no.
Yeah, no, absolutely. These were some of the initial considerations that each of the two organizations that we spoke with, that we worked on.
Just make sure it's still an open session.
Yeah.
My question, in 1973, when the planetarium was certainly something that was very useful. Since that time, we have smart boards. We have the ability of virtual experiences that the district has already invested in. What would spending this large amount of money bring to the learning experience that they can't really get with the smart boards and some of the other technologies that we now have access to?
Yeah, well, planetarium systems have completely changed over the years, just for the reasons that you're mentioning. In the 60s and 70s, when planetariums, when so many of them went into schools, especially in Pennsylvania and New York State, where really hundreds went into schools, it was because of the excitement in the space program and the fear of other countries getting ahead of us in science. And so, yeah, we don't exactly have all that anymore. But that's why digital planetariums have been invented and developed that are used for various types of immersive learning. They foster creativity, not just for STEM, but also, for the arts, multimedia, storytelling, computer graphics. And when you do step into one of these rooms, I hope you can visit a digital planetarium. You can tell that it's a special place, and students react to that and are really enthralled by the computer graphics and scenes that they can see in STEM. And there's so much that is built in to a new digital planetarium. So there is astronomy in there. But there's also a lot of visuals on biology, chemistry, and arts. And then you can also create your own computer graphics. So it's really not just for astronomy at all anymore. Some places don't even cover any astronomy, or they might just do run some of those dumb documentaries for the grades, like fourth graders or whatever grades need to have a solar system show, because that's easy to do.
Yeah, I think we would really have to look at the transportation, the scheduling, which is very different from yesteryear, and looking at how many students really would have access to that space in a way that it truly is going to enhance their learning, as opposed to the smart boards that are in their classrooms, looking at the standards that are now established for science and for some our STEM programming. I just would question whether spending the money is going to get us the largest bang for our bucks.
So I see we have the cost to hire a full-time teacher for this, which makes sense. But, we're hearing about how, these learning domes can be so much more than just astronomy and things like that. So what's the curriculum? What's the syllabus look like for each grade? Is this teacher going to be able to do everything from astronomy to anatomy to
Yeah,
art.
it's a great question. So what I would envision that position being, it would be a collaborator with the current teachers, whatever the grade level might be, and they would be working on what the specifics of that focus would be. Mr. Weir had asked the question. I'm glad came back. I had just made mention about elementary school, but you think about the secondary environment and kids in science class at the high school that would take trips to the planetarium for whatever those astronomy type purposes would be. I would think this person would be an expert in the planetarium and the function of the planetarium, but would work in consultation with and collaboration with the classroom teachers, which would be the expert in the curriculum in those areas. And they would target different focal points that would say, hey, in this particular grade level, we're looking at this. How could we utilize the planetarium to help enhance what that might be? So it would be absolutely impossible for one person to have that knowledge from a K through 12 perspective, but I think it would be collaborating with those teachers to be able to do that.
So that all makes sense. I just feel like if we're going to be voting on this really soon, shouldn't we know what that's going to be before we vote on that? Like we're speculating. They might do this. They're going to decide that. I would think we should know beforehand.
I think one of the things that Mr. Stout's trying to explain is that this delivers an experiential setting. That's what it delivers. Right. It's not about the curriculum. It's not about the things that are measured there. And I think he's trying to explain that would be impossible to do that. The facilitator or teacher that's going to be in there would work with multiple teachers throughout the district. This provides a setting, and I think that becomes part of the angst with this, because there are settings that can be created differently in today's world that we do have as part of that right now. So that's I think the yin and the yang that the board has to understand is that we're not going to present you necessarily with a curriculum. That's impossible to do. This is a learning dome. If this were to move forward, this learning dome experience would experience things throughout multiple subject areas that would not be like it once was in 1973. It was strictly a planetarium. There was a program that I would assume Mr. Dedeline through years morphed and changed and modified and increased and so forth. And that was the static to it. And it delivered that. Planetariums or experiences like that can be done so much differently in different settings now that you don't have to go into a dome experience. The dome is simply bringing it back to a dome experience with the ability, not the ability, but the possibilities of doing other types of functions in there, whether it's working, on a biology lesson, a biology lab in which you're seeing some sort of surgery that can be almost 3D morphed inside a dome experience that can be facilitated by somebody.
Sure, and I get all that, and I'm pro planetarium. I just think it's weird that we would jump in without. We're still guessing. We're going, we could do this or we could do that, or maybe it's going to morph into this. It just, when it was built in the 70s, we knew it was for astronomy.
Yeah, and we don't know, and we're not going to be able to answer that question for you. I'm being very honest with you in that you're asking us to bring back a space. That's and to modernize a space. If you want something very, very specific, that's something a whole lot different. We've been tasked with bringing this space back and modernizing. We can make it a planetarium again, and it can be strictly astronomy-based lessons that we take standardized through our third grade curriculum and run all of our third graders through this, or our kindergartners through this in terms of that. And that's what the former program was more similar and like to in its experiences. This is, in 2026, it's evolved now to where we have those spaces. Philosophically, we have those spaces in different ways. We can form those. I can put a pair of Google goggles on you and create that experience for you. You never have to leave your chair in your classroom. But we've been tasked with the idea of bringing that unique space back to life to be able to engage multiple different things. And that is the leap of faith that you would be taking as a board member to do that. I can't write you the unlimited amounts of curriculum and lessons that would be developed through this, because we don't know what those are yet with the teachers that would be, or we'd ask to put through there, or say, this would be a great experience for 10th graders to come from Bash and to do this annually in regards to this bio lesson or something along those lines. So there is that, and this is why it's taken this long. It's been nearly a year seeing what funding is out there, seeing the types of organizations that would partner with us to give opportunities to say, what does it need to bring it back to? But that's what we were tasked with. I'm going to say this out loud. Mr. Stout knows this well too, that we don't need that space to teach this to the standards that we're doing, right? We haven't needed it for 8 years to do that. So this is an add to that we've been tasked to try to think about how we can bring this unique space back to life. We haven't had to do it. It was sheltered, I think it was 2017, part of which was the retirement of the person, but I think it's also the space became less unique because there became more and more immersed technologies that developed the space that once was so unique, right? 73, you had to go there to experience that sort of thing. There weren't the smart boards, there weren't the 3D things. We weren't able to put on glasses and goggles and do all those immersive things that we are today able to do. So it is a unique space that we're suggesting, I think, for lack of a better word. So I'm sorry for that long-winded.
I think it sounds like a cool experience. I think it's extremely generous of Mr. Rolf and the foundation to donate that amount of money. I think it's a tough pill to swallow with the district having to essentially come out of pocket over $400,000 for the first year, if you want to get it in place, and then a total cost of reoccurring costs, because it's a 10-year minimum. I believe they both are 10-year minimums. So you're talking about another over 1.1 million in reoccurring costs for a nice to have for an experience. I think that sounds like a waste of money, especially when we're living in a virtual reality world, and those elements would be way cheaper. Maybe you look into repurposing the space and putting the tracks in there to put 12 stations of virtual reality where you're able to walk around on a planet, or you're able to operate on somebody virtually with things, or anything else would be more advanced. I don't know. It sounds like it's a nice to have, not a must. I don't know if it benefits our students as much as the money that you're coming out of pocket. That's just my opinion.
So one of the things I think in the timeline that we wanted the board to take time, we've
Excuse me?
okay. So was for, I think we would recommend, administration would recommend for the board to take some time to hear from community members and think on your own and come back in a couple of weeks, and we formalize this through more of a vote as to what the board's intentions are and what you'd like us to do as an administration in moving this particular project forward or not in terms of that.
Since we do have 3 new board members on board, and I don't know if any of you have ever gone down to the planetarium and seen what it's like. Maybe we should have some type of a showing down there for them to see.
I'd be more than excited to take anybody down there that I'd like to take down there, and we can arrange that. So if anybody that's not some of the new board members, absolutely.
I would like that.
We can arrange that for possibly next week. We could do that. Have you down there?
Foundation would like to speak.
Are we engaging?
Well, technically she's a sponsor, correct? So it would be like having Mr. Hurd up there, which I would allow.
No, I just have one comment. I know I'm out of bounds here, but
Mrs. Deeroff, can you step to the podium, please?
I just. That's exactly what I was going to say. This man ran that planetarium for 35 years, So if you have any questions, Mr. Detterline is here. Perhaps he could answer them for you.
I just didn't want to put him on the spot by saying that.
Well, we did anyways. Anybody has any questions?
Mr. Detterline, you're certainly welcome to the podium. Anybody has any questions for Mr. Detterline? Mr. Detterline here taught for 35 years, spending a great majority of time in there and is the expert resident for that particular space.
Thanks.
I will be one for first to ask you a question. From when you were there till now, how do you see that planetarium changing?
This is phenomenal. I've been running it for 35 years. We would have 2 elementary groups come in per day. We would have Junior High East, Boyertown School District, or the senior high come in. We would run astronomy. We would do that kind of stuff for elementary. We would also have art classes, music classes, math classes, English classes. Okay, all these different curriculum would work in there. But there's a couple of things that are the same. And that's you have a big ball that projects stars out onto the dome, over 1,900 little points of light that have been drilled into this thing. And you can really simulate the nighttime sky, but it's a mechanical device. It needs lubricant, it has mirrors, it has gears, it has belts. The change that's going to happen here is just phenomenal. This is kind of like having and finally getting that really huge TV at home you really wanted for your sporting event. And it's really high def, except this time it's going to wrap entirely around you. And what they'll be able to do with that is going to make your mouth drop. Yeah, that's the big thing. That's good. You'll just go, wow, once you see everything that you can do with this. And I think as far as curriculum and looking at other things, if somebody wanted a show in the planetarium, they would tell me what they wanted, and then we would work together to try to figure that out. And I think you mentioned that quite well. And that really kind of works that way. But here, there could be programs that you could get that are going to do what they want. And it's just going to be very, very different as far as how it's going to be run. But it really is going to be phenomenal, and it's going to be something that's going to be great for the students.
It might be that one student that you bring something to that changes their whole aspect of education.
And isn't that true for anything we're doing, right?
They'd also be making money.
It'll be making some money.
Programs, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Anything else?
Any other questions for Mr. Detterline? No? Mr. Detterline, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we want any participation from the 2 associations?
Anyone else want to speak?
Mr. Herb, on behalf of the Foundation for Boyertown.
Thank you, Dr. David Heiser. I'm Greg Kerr. I'm actually president, one of the founding members. I was just saying to Jamie, I think it's 15 or 16 years. It'll be our 16th year. But I wanted to address Mr. Brophy's question. I don't believe Stellar had a naming in there. You mentioned there was 2, unless there was somebody else that was looking at naming.
There's 2, but the second one could ask for naming rights. So
Okay, I understand.
that also be resolved.
Just to be clear, to answer the question Mr. Stout did a good job of, is we're looking at the Foundation for Boyertown Education to be somewhere in that title. And the reason for that is quite simple. The public awareness of what we are. It's not about us as individuals. I think you saw a presentation tonight where the technical advisory area has probably $250,000. We're somewhere north of $1.5 million, probably closer to $2 million. And the only reason our organization exists with a volunteer board is to raise funds to support the extra programs that wouldn't otherwise be supported by the budget. So to be clear, that was what our part was in taking a substantial amount of our hard to work for raising funds that we've done.
And I'm not saying that's out of line.
Sure.
What I'm saying is that has to be somewhat discussed and agreed to by the board and by the donors. I mean,
Correct.
That's got to be hashed out a little bit. It just can't be said we're going to do that.
Got it.
Okay? Does that make sense
Absolutely.
to you?
Yes, sure.
Mrs. Girafetti?
Yes. I'm at a disadvantage. I don't have 15, 16 years of having a nonprofit. Good evening. I'd like to take a few brief minutes to tell you about Stellar Dream. Tonight, you got information on the planetarium, and I'm sure you never heard of Stellar Dream before. After all, when we finally got into agreement to reopen the planetarium, I contacted Peter Detterline and we sat and talked how we could benefit the kids and the community at the same time. We finally decided that we could do both. Have the school use it during school hours as a teaching tool, and other hours when school was not in session, weekends, holidays, etc. We could invite the community to see shows, have dinner and a show, birthday parties, dances, something that has never been done to get the public involved. So in comes Stellar Dream, a nonprofit that just started for this specific reason. Remember that name, you'll hear it often. This nonprofit will do the shows, hire the people to run the programs, and see that you are well satisfied with what you desire. They will do what never has been done before. They want the best for this community and realize we can have both. So now when you hear the word Stellar Dream, you'll know who we are and what we like to do. I do have a video. If I would have more time, I would gladly play it, but it would take about 5.5 minutes, sir. Mr. President. Thank you.
Mr. Brophy, just to clarify, I really tried to be the facilitator of the collaboration in this process and have coordinated a couple meetings over the past 3 months to bring the two nonprofits together to create the information that are on those slides. So just to, it wasn't, it wasn't just put on there. It was based on prior conversations that had taken place. So I 100%, agree that there are further conversations till we get to the point of a decision, but that everything on this presentation was really, and I say strategically put there because it was part of a collaboration that had taken place. And the two nonprofits spoke away from those meetings to come to an agreement on different things. So just to clarify that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Just want to make sure there's no disagreements later. So I'd rather get things like that. I want that down.
And that's I put two slides at the end to have the representation. So I agree. I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Okay, as I had said earlier, I will be recommending to the board that this be placed on our 27th legislative meeting agenda for your consideration. I think obviously there's many opinions around the table here in regards to this itself, so I would encourage the board to take some time to think about all the information. If you have further questions, and anything for the nonprofits involved in this, we can try to connect and get that information back to you in the time, but we would recommend that we place this on the agenda for 2 weeks from now to take a vote as to whether we're pursuing this or not. So that takes us to item E, and that is, again, here we are mid-year. I'm going to invite Mr. Stout back to the podium. We have tonight a draft of the recommended and proposed 26-27 school district calendar, and I'm going to have Mr. Stout walk the board through all the pieces to this and share what changes that we are recommending from prior years.
Thank you, Dr. David Heiser. I'm pulling two responsibilities tonight, presenter as well as facilitator. So thank you for the opportunity to speak to the projected 26-27 calendar. I've kind of been a part of this process over the past 4 or 5 years within the district, and really I know there has been conversations in the past here that there was a concern about the number of half days that we would really be looking at as a district, just because of the inconvenience that it would put on parents when they've got to find a spot for their kids to go at the elementary school level for the second half of the day when you think about the calendar in general. So we tried to really take into consideration, if you paid attention to Mrs. Petrie's presentation, very thorough presentation tonight, that stuff that we are requesting doesn't happen without a professional learning that needs to take place to help support our teachers to be the most efficient and effective teachers that they can be. And we also have 190 teacher days to work with. So we need to really think about what is the best way that we can meet the needs of our students and utilize our staff to be able to support the needs of our kids. So we're hopeful that this calendar that I'm proposing to you tonight is going to be the best of all of those worlds. Ultimately, you will see in the previous calendar, which I do not have displayed, we had approximately 12 half days built into the calendar. This calendar you will see has 8 half days built into it, and you will also see we very much try to strategically place those half days at a holiday time, whether it was an extended holiday break like the winter break or Thanksgiving break or spring break, or just the other day. And I'll go through the calendar pretty quickly here to kind of give you a quick overview if it's a long weekend. So we're looking at, and by the way, Labor Day starts as late as it possibly can. So the creation of this calendar is starting as probably early as it ever will, but it also is basically aligned with our BCTC start, which would be on August 24th. Teachers would come in for 3 professional learning days the week before, which has been past practice. When you look at September, it is very reminiscent of the current calendar. We would have Labor Day, like I shared, is on September 7th, which is as late as it can possibly occur. And then we have our first professional learning day, which would be in the September 16th time block. Mr. Hahn, if you can wheel down a little bit there. So when you look at the Columbus Day weekend, we made a significant change here in past practice. That early dismissal day that is actually on Friday, October 9th, has typically been the Wednesday after Columbus Day, and we purposefully did that just because in past practice, PSATs are administered on that day, and it worked very conveniently for our high school students to take those assessments during the morning, and then we have our senior project presentations in the afternoon, which many of you and new board members, I hope you take advantage of this year, have the opportunity to see our senior project presentations that happen on that day. So that's a highlight for our district, where we have all of our professional teaching staff have the ability to be able to observe our seniors and the work that they've done, and it's a nice opportunity for them to see the diligence that's happened in the collaboration between elementary school all the way up to high school. So that moved from the Wednesday after Columbus Day to the Friday, so it butts up against the weekend. Very significant change that we put into this calendar, much different than what we've done in the past. When you look at the Thanksgiving break and the Monday of Thanksgiving week, Monday, November 23rd, is a full student day. We decided to make that a full student day and then have parent-teacher conferences in the evening. Then we have an early dismissal day, which was past practice, on the Tuesday, which would be Tuesday, November 24th. And then what we decided to make a shift in our schedule change this year would be to have all students off on the 25th. And that would be an opportunity for us to have parent-teacher conferences in the morning, and then we would have our opportunity for our teachers for collaboration and whatnot in the afternoon. So that's a distinct difference than what in all of my 16 years here within the district, it's the first time we haven't had half days on all of those 3 days. So hopefully that would be a little more supportive of our families within the community. The winter break is similar to this year's winter break. It starts with the day before the winter break being a half day, and then it would filter through. Mr. Hahn, if you can wheel down to the top of the next column. No, all the way, go up. There you go, up to January. There you go. It goes through January 1st being a Friday, and then we would resume our school back again on January 4th. MLK days off, because we have 180 student days, we had to find another spot for our students to potentially have a day off. So we decided to do the Friday, and our teachers are off on that particular day, the Friday before the President's Day weekend. If we had our teachers come in on that day, they would be one beyond their typical teacher contracted contract. When you look at spring break, it falls into March in this particular year, and you can see the early dismissal day that has been a historical day that has butted up against our spring break, so that would be an early dismissal day for our students. In April, there's one professional learning day for our teachers, which we would not have students, so that would be on April 14th. In May, the prom day for the high school, and that is confirmed. We have locked in that date. That's typically been a professional learning day for our teachers and also a day for our students to have the opportunity, either a half day or a full day. So we decided to make that a full day. And then the last week in the calendar, which is the first week of June, which is really the Memorial Day weekend, we have our 4 early dismissal days, which really help for end of year assessments and of course assessments at the secondary level, and professional learning that helps to support our teachers to have culmination to the school year as well as to start planning for the upcoming school year, believe it or not. So our last calendar day would be on Friday, June 4th. You can see the calendar is, we used a little bit of a different format this year to try to make it a little more convenient and aesthetically pleasing to look at. So hopefully this is a calendar that we can put on our agenda for the legislative meeting in January for approval. Any questions?
Yes, September 16th and April 14th, the 2 days off. Would it be amicable to move those to either that Monday or the Friday of that week? I know middle of the week for some families trying to find childcare is kind of difficult. I'm not sure rhyme or reason to the middle of the week.
We put them on those days. It's a great question, and we can certainly have conversation about it. When we had all of the early dismissal days, we did try to put them on different days to not have them always be on the same days of the week. So for the exact opposite reason is the reason we put them there. But I would not necessarily disagree with you that, depending on circumstances, there's really not an official rhyme or reason why those days are where they are. Mrs. Nyman.
Yeah, have we checked with the BCTC to see if our days off coincide with any of theirs?
The start of the BCTC calendar is the same.
I'm not talking about the start. I'm talking about days we have off. Do they have the same days off because we're having issues? Parents are having to bring their kids to school, and then we have to have another bus run up to the BCTC. Wouldn't it be more inclined to coordinate our days off with them? Or them with us?
We are attempting, again, we're working, when we work with the BCTC, we work with 17 other districts, right? So all that coordination is trying to go. First item is start, that we need to align the start. And we do have many of the days aligned, not all of them get aligned to exactly what BCTC has with their needs and staff needs versus our staff needs. And again, you have a CBA that comes into play with their staff as well as it does our staff with days and so forth. So I don't know that you're ever going to see a year where they exactly align and overlap, because they're identifying, along with other districts, needs based on their needs as well. And everybody else's schedule as well. They're trying to accommodate 18 school districts. We share within and among all of the school districts in Berks County, and we work through the IU with doing that annually. We've gone through some of that this fall to try to establish that, and we set the norm with BCTC setting the school year start date. That begins it.
One more question. The Thanksgiving break, where the November 23rd, have we contacted or talked to the teachers regarding particularly elementary teachers that get inundated with parent-teacher conferences? Are they still going to have the same amount of time to meet with parents with those 2 half days, or that half day and the AM conference on the 25th?
Yes, we've had conversations with the teachers with respect to that. It really is still having 2 evening opportunities for parents to come in, and really we typically did not have conferences on the Wednesday in the morning, but this opportunity moves from Monday to kind of like complement that. Teachers are going to try to get the conferences in when they're going to be able to get them in. And I'm going to predict you won't see a lot of conferences scheduled on that Wednesday for kind of obvious purposes, but it provides that opportunity for conferences to be scheduled on that. But really, in the end, we still have Monday the 23rd for evening conferences and then Tuesday the 24th for evening conferences. So it's a great question. And really, this is a first year to tweak it. And I'm sure we will get feedback based upon whether or not, because Monday is going to be a marathon. You know, when you think about teaching, your kids in the classroom during the course of a day and then having to do parent-teacher conferences from the elementary school perspective till 7:30 at night, it's kind of like we're here today. Like it's a long day to go through that. But then again, Wednesday, they're not going to have kids. So that's going to give them a little bit of a breath on that day, but also provide opportunities to make up conferences on the morning. So, but good question. We did take that into consideration. We did look at some neighboring schools within Montgomery and Berks to see what they do. And this is kind of a compilation of what we determined.
Yeah, I remember that Monday being tough. And I do think Home and School Association provided dinner where I taught for teachers that day.
So I will tell you that when the conference used to be on Thursday night, the week before, so, if you can remember back to those days, in my particular building, there was a potluck. My favorite day of the year when the teachers all brought something in and then the recipes and things like that. So there was a combination. One day was an HSA, one day was a potluck with teachers. Each building kind of has their own culture to do that. But yes, those are all things that they typically are supportive of.
And when is graduation?
Graduation would be on June 4th. The Memorial Day week, it would be the Friday of Memorial Day week is what our target would be.
Okay.
Dr. Weir, can you just go back and tell us those dates again, just so I have those that what you want us to consider and change? Is it one was September 16th?
Correct. The 16th and April 14th.
April 14th.
Yeah, making it a long weekend. Again, just changing it up from the middle of the week.
Got it.
Just for parents. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Stout? All right. Thank you, Mr. Stout. Thank you for your work on this. We'll bring this back with those considerations from Dr. Weir and hopefully for your consideration for a vote at our next legislative meeting. So it takes us down to item F. We do have a budget update, and I'm going to ask Mr. Lentz, who can present there from, I believe, just your seat, to give some highlight updates about where we are with our current 26-27 budget.
Correct. Thank you, Dr. David Heiser. So just to, remind us all that the budget has been ongoing. We started looking at this year's budget in the fall. We've also started our planning for next year's budget. So when we go to the next slide, as far as overview, a lot of work has taken place to refine our data for this year, as well as to use that data as a decision making in what, at this point, we can best estimate costs will be for the next year. On the next slide, some milestones that have happened since our last presentation is that administrators and their staff have worked to enter their budgets. We're looking at that now. We've also looked at things that we need to start replacement cycles for, which is why later tonight you'll see vehicle replacement start to happen within the district as a whole. We've also complied with some state requirements regarding our reporting and the Sterling Act credit, which are funds that come off of your tax bill every year. So on the next slide, you'll see this is where we sit in January. So we have all the preliminary data from our departments. I've also done an assumptive analysis, moving teachers and staff to where their salaries would be for next year, so we can kind of capture what that looks like from a dollar amount. Big piece of information we don't have is our benefit costs for healthcare. So I'll talk a little later about what we're doing for that. On the next slide, so at this point from revenue, echoing where we were in the fall, I still believe the budget's doable with around a 2% property tax increase for the year. We talked the last time that we were able to align revenues to actual trends for interest. I'm actually working on building out an investment program to capture increased interest earnings for the district and to stabilize should the interest market change. as well as aligning revenues to account for additional real estate tax transfer funds we've been receiving, as well as additional earned income taxes. We recently had the state budget pass. With that, I presented to the board an update on the level of adequacy funding that we have received from the state, and that comes in what's called the Ready to Learn Block Grant. So I've assumed at this point that amount will continue. In February, the governor will release his budget, and we'll use that to further foreshadow the budget. Again, even though this year was a unique year, it's very hard to actually figure out where we're going to land within the state budget process. So it will always be one of our variables. Next slide. So when you just look at overall revenue projections, we're looking at $158 million of revenue for next year as a whole. And again, our biggest significant changes come in those adjustments to local revenue, both aligning to actual trends, but being conservative about that. And at this point, the requirement for a 2% property tax increase. On the next slide, so when we talk about, at this point, needing a 2% tax increase and revenue increases, this is what it's supporting. And these are aligned to our district strategic plan. So at this point, in the 25-26 budget, we had built in 2 full-time positions for the plan that if we were to go with full-day kindergarten, we would need to start to have those positions in the budget. Those positions would stay in the budget. We also would look to add for next year 5 full-time positions for full-day K. And while we're not necessarily pulling the trigger next year on full-day K, we have to start to build those costs in the budget because we're not able to levy taxes or additional revenues all in one year to accommodate that change. So the goal strategically has been, going along the path as we are researching the feasibility and that decision to build into the budget associated staffing positions. The next are just coaching positions based upon where we are for athletic programs. Those are relatively small costs because they don't come with benefit costs that are significant. Other positions that have been built into this budget are an extra ELL position at the high school, 2 elementary intervention positions, and an intervention at the middle school. And those positions also are not only aligned to current student needs, but will also set us up that in the event we do move forward and have a year that we implement for full-day K, we'll have the requisite supports throughout the district for those students. And again, as I stated earlier, assuming our current staffing in place and these new additions, we've reflected what the staffing schedule will be for next year. Also, as we go through the budget process, we've included what the non-professional staff increase is at this time, and an indicator that we'll talk more about for adjusting our support staff salaries to market, as well as any other positions throughout the district to a market base that we'll share more about next month at the Finance Committee. The next slide. So from a benefit position, at this point, I'm assuming a 10% increase that's included in the budget on medical, but our actual numbers are forthcoming. So that can have some variance up or down. We know our PESER's retirement rate for pension is relatively consistent with the prior year, as well as all those other payroll taxes that we have as a district are consistent with prior years. On the next slide, from a non-salary standpoint, but not small within the budget, I've accounted for our current contractual increase for support staff, both substitutes as well as our CRES staff. Also accounted for our utilization of the technology fund for technology purposes and the associated replacement with using those funds. And as we talked about previously, a clear identification of funds to replace the capital reserve fund. So at this point, that transfer would be $2.7 million. And again, a budget reserve of 1% for $1.5 million. And again, we talked about the fact that student move-ins, other changes, unexpected issues that we have to address in buildings, just let's identify a 1% reserve, put it in the budget, and all work off of there, that we have those funds that, again, could delta us at the end of the year to a positive, but that we all have a common understanding of what our additional funding is in the budget rather than having it spread throughout individual line items. So we look at the next slide, expenditure projection, 158 million. And again, some of the most significant changes you'll see are that the other uses of funds and other objects increases because that's our associated budget reserve and specific identified budgeted transfer to the capital reserve. With regards to some areas that didn't increase as much. So when we look at the projected salaries and benefits, as we align costs to actuals, those don't go up, representative of the associated increase in salary costs. I think from a matrix standpoint for professional staff, it's almost a 10% increase to the budget as the implementation of step and column increases to there. But because of where the budget was for 25-26 developed, the alignment comes in that we're not going to see that in the budget. And I think that's important to call out because next year we won't be in this position. Next year you'll be, adding to that dollar amount in the expenditures, and also will have to make up that associated revenue with that as it plays out. And from an overall budget standpoint, just to give you a perspective, this year's budget started with being passed at a $1.7 million deficit. At this point, the budget's balanced. Moving forward, and on the next slide, just highlight some upcoming milestones. I mentioned from a talking point, in February, we'll have a Finance Committee update on budget, and then in March, another update. And as we move through the budget to get it to be approved as a proposed final budget and then a final budget, we'll start to talk about what a long-range forecast looks like in the budget as far as having an understanding of what the path is ahead. Because decisions with regards to a tax increase impact us both in the upcoming year as well as long-term, because that is a revenue source that you're going to lock into the budget that's going to be a base in those future years. And then just outlining those other milestones. I don't have to go over those at this point. I can certainly answer questions.
On the expenditure projections, you have benefits going down from 26 to 27 year.
Yes, the history shows they were over budgeted, and when you see the actuals, it's representative that there was more put there than what we actually spent and incurred regarding our participation in the consortium for benefits.
And at any point, are we going to have someone come in from our benefits and give us a breakdown of what's going on?
I believe in December I gave the board an update that came right from the consortium. The next update would be on the.
But we used to have them come in and do.
Yes.
It was only for board members. You couldn't be. It wasn't to the public. But they come in and they give us a breakdown of what's going on. It was more an in-depth.
The information I shared is what they're able to share from a HIPAA and a privacy perspective, according to what they report out to the trust. I can follow up back about if they could present, but that is a limitation that they have. So there's not a lot of questions that they can answer based upon the data for HIPAA and privacy. Also, there's not a lot of data that they can share because they can't in any way identify individuals, be them employees or others. Oh, employees or others to those trends.
Right, I get that, but they used to come in and they used to say, oh, this was X amount of dollars spent on heart or something like that, or gave us a breakdown too of also some of the medical or the prescriptions, gave us all kinds of good information.
And from my understanding, what I provided in one of the weekly updates was what they're able to provide that doesn't in any way identify any individual cases through the district.
I get that, but it was a good presentation right from them, and we could ask them questions.
Mr. Lentz will check back with them to see if they have an opportunity to do that, or they will just, we'll have them continue to provide information like we did in the weekly. And then if there's any questions that you have generated from that, we can always go back to them to seek some of those answers.
Correct.
Mr. Lenz, on your slide, other non-salary and benefit budget highlights, you have a bullet there to increase contractual costs for substitute services. Is that going to include guaranteed subs? We heard quite a bit, I thought, very poignant information tonight that students are not getting their interventions on somewhat of a regular basis because of the issues with subs. So by having guaranteed subs, we could perhaps really eliminate or limit the amount of time that would be happening.
So we've made some measures. I'm going to ask Mr. Hahn to remind, so I don't get the details wrong, but we've done some adjustments to rates as well as to ensure longevity that I'm going to ask Mr. Hahn to speak to.
Yeah, it's a good question. We started the school year with our request to have one building sub at all of our elementary buildings. It took a little while for Kelly Services to provide that. We do have one building sub at all of our elementaries at this current point, and we then probably in the latter part of November, beginning of December, we requested a second building sub at Colebrookdale and at Washington. I do believe a second one has been identified for Colebrookdale after talking to Principal Mason last week, and I do believe that they're close to identifying a second one for Washington, but that is something that Mr. Lenz put in the budget for next year to continue as well. And if you remember, probably a month to a month and a half ago, we did increase our daily sub rate from $110 to $130 in an effort to continue to have our fill rate somewhere hover. We know that we're never going to be at 100% fill rate, but to get our fill rate somewhere between 70 and 75% every day, and we hover anywhere between 60 and 65% at this current time.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Anything else for Mr. Lenz?
So just a final wrap up. So for action, the board at this point has to approve the resolution that they will commit to not exceed the Act 1 index for the district. The goal of presenting you this data now is that you can see from this overview, we feel we can, as an administration, present to you a budget within that index, so that that approval then will submit that to the Department of Ed, and there's no referendum exceptions or other steps we have to take until we come back to a proposed final budget in May.
And again, you'll see that listed there as item G, and that kind of spells out the formality to which you've been taking that Act 1 resolution since 2006 as a school district, when Act 1 came into play. But we feel that we can, within the constraints that we've talked about and so forth, bring forward a budget that's well inside of that Act 1 rate that's allowable. Mr. Lance, you just want to give a highlight on the IDEA pass-through agreement with the BCIU?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. David Heiser. So on the IDEA agreement, we receive our funding for IDEA, which is federal funds, through the intermediate unit. It's passed through to us. And so because of that arrangement, we have to engage and sign this agreement that we will be in compliance for the $1.4 million we're receiving, because essentially we're spending the money, the IU is going to report it to the feds, and so that compliance means things like federal purchasing requirements, background checks for individuals, those type of things that every school district commits to and agrees to for their IDEA funds.
Under item I, and again, if you recall, during the fall, you approved the administration to go out on bid for an RFP on some district vehicle. These are the results. And Mr. Lentz, you just want to share with them where those came and what our intentions are with regard to this year's budget.
Thank you, Dr. David Heiser. So we talked about needing to develop replacement cycles in the district to have a better sense to manage what needs to be replaced and what our goals are, because we can't do it all at once. So the initial was student van bids and the replacement of one maintenance truck because that is essential to our plowing and snow removal ability. We also, within this, to remind everybody, talked about rotating vehicles. So some of the vans that we're going to take and replace for student use are going to go for courier and other services in the district. With that, so the results here, Fred Beans had the lowest qualified bid for the pickup truck and school vans. So we'll be asking for approval at the legislative meeting to move forward and purchase those. And those both vans land at Bash.
Under item J, we do have a placement, and it was updated in your weekly with regard to the Anderson School, and there's an agreement listed there, better meet the needs of the student that is part of that agreement. Under item K, this is for a contract for nursing services that are needed within an IEP for a student at Washington Elementary in our life skills. In order to meet the needs of the designated IEP. And you can see the rates there for that contractual amount. Under item L, Mr. Palladino, still back there, I see. Just to give a brief update and reminder to the board and to our newest members, a sense of what the gold card is here within the school district. And then if you can jump down into and just share a little bit about the athletic bids.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. David Heiser. The Gold Card Club is a way of saying thank you to all of our Boyertown area senior citizens or retired employees for their outstanding support of public education. Membership in the Gold Card Club entitles residents or retired employees that live within the Boyertown School District who are 62 years of age free general admission to athletic contests within the Pioneer Athletic Conference regular season and plays and some musical productions within the Boyertown School District. Now, it's the easiest thing the way to explain it with the musical productions, some of them we cannot just use the Gold Card Club for because of royalties. We need to pay per ticket. So I always tell everybody who we give the Gold Card to just check with the school that you're going to, make sure they accept the Gold Card, and most of them do. So every school within the Pioneer Athletic Conference, they will accept this Gold Card if you go there, home and away. So you go to Pottsgrove, get in the game for free. We accept their cards, they accept ours. Then moving on to the next part is our fall athletic bids for 2026 year. As you can see, they're broken down on there by sport. Bids were sent out. These are the comparable bids that were accepted, best comparable bids. So is there any questions on the bid items?
Any questions regarding gold cards? Are the bids that are listed there for our fall 2026 season? Any questions about the cards or bids? Again, more procedural than anything when it comes to the bid items that are listed there, as we're responsible to go out to bid for those items. Under item N, there is an overnight trip listed in the agenda. You see the details. These are for PMEA District 10 Orchestra Festival students. And again, with these competitions, there are selections that are made, so they don't necessarily meet or fit neatly into our design of be presented at a work session meeting and then voted on at a legislative. We will need to bring this forward later in this agenda for your vote, as this activity is going to be taking place prior to our next board meeting. But you can see there and list out the details of the responsibilities of both students and the activity funds and the cost of the district as it relates. So congratulations to those 7 students who will be attending that next stage of the orchestra festival competition here in Pennsylvania. Yep.
I see on here there's a substitute listed as 110 per day. Shouldn't that be 130?
Mr. Hahn, do we have that incorrect in that? It is incorrect. That's incorrect. So we will make that adjustment certainly for the pay of that substitute. Thank you for catching that for us.
Do I get paid for that?
You don't get the extra $20.
No, I get part of Mr. Hahn's job.
There you go. You'll have to negotiate that with him. All right, thank.
All the way down, activity, I mean, it's,
Yeah, we have it listed. I see where you're talking about with it. We'll correct that. So thank you for seeing that. Policies O through Y are policies that were discussed at our last policy committee meeting. Again, this was prior to the reorganization and the new members coming on board. I did place them on there. These were the edited versions of these policies. Many of these policies, there was not a lot of change due to the fact that they were aligned mostly with federal and state laws, as many of these fell into the Title IX and discrimination policies themselves. What I'm looking forward to do is to bring these forward for a first read at the next legislative meeting. If there are any other concerns that you have over the next couple of weeks, please let me know, and we can discuss and make any adjustments. If not, we'll bring these forward for a first read for the board, and as all board policies must go through 2 reads, this will start that process. Okay, that takes us down. I believe that ends our discussion items. Takes us down to reports. Mr. Brophy?
BCIU, Mr. Brophy.
Next BCI meeting is this Thursday, so nothing at this time.
Mr. Updegrove, BCTC.
Yeah, we had 2 students from Boyertown that excelled really. We have Jesus Minninger, 12th grade Boyertown welding. He finished first place in the competition results in the skills welding. And then we had Elliot Wendell, Boyertown Diesel Technology. He was the overall contestant winner, first place, $10,000 scholarship to Penn College. Nice. And the Diesel Technology team, top school overall, 4th in a row for $5,000 for Diesel Technology program. Those students excelled in the skills competition.
Good stuff.
That's it.
That's it. Public comment period number 1, Ms. Deeroff, Planetarium.
I already spoke, thank you.
I believe then it is Mr. Langdon, the Water Quality Management.
Good evening. My name is Brian Langdon. I'm from Gilbertsville, Pennsylvania, and it's my thank you for having the opportunity to speak to you this evening. I just want to first off recognize the promptness and communication from Dr. David Heiser on the multiple emails that I sent in regards to the water quality at Gilbertsville once the newspaper article was released on December 13th. I also am very thankful and appreciative of the presentation from Mr. Crum. It was very, very informative and definitely gave me some extra insight into what is going on. Just for some background, my daughter is a 3rd grader at Gilbertsville, and my son is a 1st grader at Gilbertsville, and I was an employee here for over 12 years. Loved my time here at Boyertown, and I miss many of my colleagues and the students here dearly. I've reached out to Dr. David Heiser as well as the board in regards to the water quality. And while the communication was prompt and very informative as well, there was some information that still needs to be answered. My main concern is the lack of communication and transparency from the district from the point of when that newspaper article came out to now. That newspaper article was released on December 13th, and this is over a month later. Yes, we had a 2-week off period for winter break, but there was a large number of time where our students were there and we were left a little bit without all the essential information to ease the worries of many families in this district. December 13th, like I said, the article was released, and Dr. David Heiser sent out a letter on the 15th. However, there was that test back in October that exceeded the limits, the one that was showing that was over the 14 MCL limit. in my opinion, I wish that the district would have communicated that there was concern already at that time for parents. Yes, the averages are definitely within the guidelines, and I understand that. But as Mr. Crum said in his presentation, when in regards to arsenic, that was lowered from 50 to 100 or 50 to 10. We should also be very cautious, and whenever we cross a limit, we need to make sure that we're ahead of the curve. One thing that else I appreciated that Mr. Crum said was that we need to be proactive instead of reactive. As an educator, I always taught my students to be proactive rather than inactive, or proactive rather than reactive, which is better than inactive. My concern was that the district had information in regards to the PVOS that was at Gilbertsville Elementary School and was inactive in terms of telling the people, or the students and families and staff members of that during that time. While we are within the regulations because of the deadline to 2031, I still believe that could have been shared with our presentation. So. There was a lot of great suggestions. I appreciate the suggestion from Dr. David Heiser about to list this on the district website, as well as with like the asbestos results and all those other things. I think that's a great idea. I also am a big fan of the stainless steel water bottle instead of the regular water bottles. I think that's a great. I hope that there is some regular maintenance of the water filters that are being used at those filling stations as well. I also suggest notifying parents when a test does reach over that mark, regardless of the average. I think that's important information for the students and community of Gilbertsville to know when that is happening. And I think by posting that on the website, that could be a very easy way to do this. I encourage the board to not look at the bottom line in this moment. These are students that are in their most developmental stage of their lives, and the chemicals that are in there can present some major complications when it comes to that. So I encourage you guys to start looking at the students' health and safety in that moment. In this moment within here, instead of looking just at the bottom line. I continue to hope that the district takes proactive approach rather than the reactive approach and what happened in regards to this. Thank you very much for your time.
At this time, we're looking for approval of December 2nd, 2025 reorganization meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Ms. Connor.
Yes.
Ms. Kratz.
Yes.
Ms. Nyman.
Yes.
Mr. Brad Updegrove.
Yes.
Mr. Roger Updegrove.
Yes.
Dr. Weir.
Yes.
Ms. Wiley. Yes. Dr. Wiley, apologize. Mr. Brophy.
Yes.
Mr. Penarello.
Yes.
Ayes have it.
Now we'll be looking for the approval of December 2nd, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
Ms. Connor.
Yes.
Ms. Kratz.
Yes.
Ms. Nyman.
Yes.
Mr. Brad Updegrove.
Yes.
Mr. Roger Updegrove.
Yes.
Dr. Weir.
Yes.
Dr. Wiley.
Yes.
Mr. Brophy.
Yes.
Mr. Penarello.
Yes.
Ayes have it.
That takes us to the superintendent's consent agenda. We do have one item there under consent, and that is the overnight trip that we just reviewed a few minutes ago. So the administration under item B does recommend the board approval of the consent agenda item listed.
Brophy motions.
Ms. Connor.
Yes.
Ms. Kratz.
Yes.
Ms. Nyman.
That is with the correction to the,
Yes, we will make that correction.
okay, if the correction's there, then yes.
Mr. Brad Updegrove.
Yes.
Mr. Roger Updegrove.
Yes.
Dr. Weir.
Yes.
Dr. Wiley.
Yes.
Mr. Brophy.
Yes.
Mr. Penarello.
Yes.
Ayes have it.
Under Superintendent's itemized agenda, we do have a number of agreements that are on for your consideration. And again, as the awarding of the projects back in October and November for both the turf fields and for the Boyertown Elementary roof and HVAC systems were awarded by the board, and you voted on those. That set it into stages where then we developed an agreement. All of these agreements were reviewed by Mr. Sultanic's office and have been approved, and all the necessary legalities have been worked through with regard to that. So under item A, the administration does recommend the approval of Lantec Group LLC and the contract for the turf fields as listed.
Panarello moves.
I'll second.
Ms. Diamond has a question.
This is an agreement, and that's for the contract. In the contract, do we have anything different in there for a project manager?
Anything different for a project manager? I'm not sure what you're
Well, I
referring to.
requested a project manager because at that time, originally, Mr. Shield was here, and I didn't think he was qualified to do the project.
So there will be an on-site project manager from CHA that oversees the project on the behalf of the school district and oversees Lantec's work, and then works with our facilities department in coordination. If there were to be any change orders or any adjustments, those would be brought back through the board, be discussed and considered through that and through Mr. Bramble.
And Mr. Bramble is going to be out for surgery, I think, I heard.
That I can't speak to. We don't have any information with regard to that, so it's not something I can comment on.
So I have major concerns on that. I still think we need our own project manager, not CHA. We've had issues with, it wasn't them at the time, it was D. Huey at the time, but we had issues, so.
Okay, well, I am confident in the fact that not only do we have Mr. Lynch, who's organized both projects on both of these, their representatives that will be on site in oversight of the primes that will be on the jobs. I have confidence in them working, and that representative working with Mr. Bramble and Mr. Bramble's office to coordinate. And if there are any concerns outside of what we expect to happen, that they'll be brought back to the board for full discussion and disclosure for any further decisions.
Is that the same setup for is that the same setup for the other projects as well?
It is.
Yeah.
Just as an understanding, the project manager working for the subcontractor works for the subcontractor, not for us. You can look at him that way, he's working for us, but he doesn't. But that's your choice.
Call the roll. Ms. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Kratz?
Yes.
Ms. Nyman?
No.
Mr. Brad Updegrove?
Yes.
Mr. Roger Updegrove?
Yes.
Dr. Weir?
Yes.
Dr. Wiley? Yes. Mr. Brophy?
No.
Mr. Pettarello?
Yes.
Ayes have it.
Under item B, the administration recommends the board approve the JBM Mechanical Incorporated contract for the Boyertown Area School District BES HVAC and roof system replacement project as listed.
Panarello moves.
Ms. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Kratz?
Yes.
Ms. Nyman?
I'm going to abstain because I'm very concerned about not having a project manager.
Are you abstaining for a non-conflict of interest reason?
Yes.
Okay, that will technically be a no, but it's an abstention.
Mr. Brad Updegrove?
Yes.
Mr. Roger Updegrove?
Yes.
Dr. Weir?
Yes.
Dr. Wiley?
Yes.
Mr. Brophy?
Yes.
Mr. Pettarello?
Yes.
Ayes have it.
Under item C, again, the administration recommends the approval of the contract for EA Roofing Company LLC and for the BES HVAC and roof system replacement project as listed.
I'll second.
Ms. Connor.
Yes.
Ms. Kratz.
Yes.
Ms. Nyman.
I'm going to abstain again.
Mr. Brad Updegrove.
Once again, just your abstentions will be reflected as a non-conflict of interest.
Right.
Otherwise, you would have to fill out a memorandum and give it to the board secretary.
I would gladly fill it out regardless.
Mr. Brad Updegrove.
Yes.
Mr. Roger Updegrove.
Yes.
Dr. Weir.
Yes.
Dr. Wiley.
Yes.
Mr. Brophy.
Yes.
Mr. Penarello.
Yes.
Ayes have it.
Under item D, the administration recommends the approval of Phillips Brothers Electrical Contractors Incorporated. It's contract for the Boyertown Area School District BES HVAC and roof system project as listed.
I'll second.
Ms. Connor.
Yes.
Ms. Kratz.
Yes.
Ms. Nyman.
Abstain, non, everything's the same as the other two.
Mr. Brad Updegrove.
Yes.
Mr. Roger Updegrove.
Yes.
Dr. Weir.
Yes.
Dr. Wiley.
Yes.
Mr. Brophy.
Yes.
Mr. Penarello.
Yes.
Ayes have it.
Under item E, administration recommends the adoption of the Act 1 resolution, thereby limiting the tax increase for the 2026-2027 school year by no more than the Act index listed there of 4.2%.
I'll motion.
Weir seconds.
Ms. Connor.
Yes.
Ms. Kratz.
Yes.
Ms. Nyman.
Yes.
Mr. Brad Updegrove.
Yes.
Mr. Roger Updegrove.
Yes.
Dr. Weir.
Yes.
Dr. Wiley.
Yes.
Mr. Brophy.
Yes.
Mr. Penarello.
Yes.
Ayes have it.
Under item F, the administration recommends the board take approval of the personnel agenda as listed.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
Ms. Connor.
Yes.
Ms. Kratz.
Yes.
Ms. Nyman.
Yes.
Mr. Brad Updegrove.
Yes.
Mr. Roger Updegrove.
Yes.
Dr. Weir.
Yes.
Dr. Wiley.
Yes.
Mr. Brophy.
Yes.
Mr. Penarello.
Yes.
Ayes have it.
Dr. David Heiser, could I say something about the retirees? On the personnel,
early, yes.
Thank you. On the personnel agenda, I just want to acknowledge the excess of 250 years of teaching experience that we're going to be losing at the end of this year. Those 10 individuals that are represented have devoted a significant amount of time and their professional careers to the district. So I just wanted to publicly thank them. We do have in the contract the stipulation that all retiree notifications need to be provided by January 15th. So we may have some additional names on the board agenda for January 27th, but I just wanted to give a thank you to those individuals that are represented there.
Next, we have old business. We'll be announcing the committees. The Finance Committee will be myself, Mr. Roger Updegrove, and Dr. Wiley. Education and Student Services Committee will be Dr. Wiley, Dr. Ware, and Mrs. Kratz. Mrs. Kratz will also remain the Student Board Representative Liaison. The Facilities Committee will be myself, Mr. Roger Updegrove, and Ms. Connor. The Policy Committee will be Ms. Kratz, Brad Updegrove, and Dr. Ware. Next up is comment period number 2. No one has signed up, which leads us to board comment. Ms. Connor, do you have anything?
Not at this time.
Yes, I have a concern. I had phone calls as to why our buildings were not plowed over the holidays. In particular, why the Monroe Street extension was not done, since that's emergency personnel that could go through there. and everybody was wondering why it was not done.
I'll need to get some answers for you. It's the first I've been made aware of that. I did not get any contacts from any community members with regards to this. It was my understanding, and we did have plow systems and salt systems in place to be able to handle things over the holidays as well. So I'll be able to get back to you with some information.
I was told nothing was done, and in fact, I drove past the Monroe Street extension, and nothing was done to that. If the fire trucks or EMS or police, whatever.
I will get some information back to you as soon as I can from Mr. Bramwell's office. Thank you for letting me know.
I received the same same information that Ms. Nyman received as well. So from probably different people.
Yeah.
But,
I'll have a conversation and get back to you, some information on that.
Dr. Wiley.
Just a concern about the sub rate. I saw a lot of information that although it has been established that those teachers who have a history with the district should be getting the higher rate, and that it is certainly something that has been put into place that they're not getting it. They're not getting the higher rate.
I can follow up with my contact, which is Mrs. Bilger at Kelly Services, and get back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hahn, when did we make that adjustment? That was made back in November, October, November?
It was a board meeting. Could have been late October, early November. I'd have to go back and look at the board agenda.
Yeah, so that has been put into, I know and that has transpired into us having the fill rates on some of those sub positions. So that's information that we'll need to investigate.
Do they bill us?
Kelly Services, yes, they will bill us.
And does the bill go to Dr. or Mr. Horn?
Mr. Hahn reviews those. It goes through the billing office and so forth. So
we don't get an itemized bill per day. We get an itemized bill for the time period. So it's not like we can see.
But isn't the rate on there that they should be paid? Or?
But the rates vary because depending on if it's an extended sub or a day-to-day sub. So a day-to-day sub is 130. An extended sub could be up to 155. So they have rates, but correct.
So Dr. Wiley, are you hearing that from some substitutes themselves that have come to you? Do you know if they're of the newer rate of day-to-day, or are they an elevated rate that they've been here longer?
The comments have been that once you've established yourself as an established sub, which was how many days? Once you work
After the
past-
30 days?
After, no, is it 30?
So the day-to-day rate, we changed from 110 to 130. There is a structure in place that as individuals sub for over 30, over 60, that rate increases.
Right.
So we would have to look at what the individuals are stating. Are they stating they're not getting the 130, or are they not getting the additional rate past 30 days or past 60 days?
They're saying that even coming back, if they've established themselves a year, coming back the next school year, that they should not have to start over again.
Correct, and that was something that we addressed. I think Mrs. Kratz brought that up at a board meeting, and the very next day, and I can provide you with the documentation from Mrs. Bilger, that they were going to retroactively compensate those individuals and bill us for those that did start over, when the idea was that they would not have to start over the next school year. So if you have specific names, that would be wonderful for me to provide, but I will also follow up with my contact, Steph Bilger, tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Nothing.
I don't have anything.
I want to thank the 10 teachers that have been here forever on their retirement, and I wish them well. And again, I say thank you, because I might have had one back then.
250 years ago?
About that.
We have some upcoming meeting dates, and Our next meeting here will be at 6 o'clock, which will be the 27th, our Facilities Committee meeting, followed by a legislative meeting at 7 o'clock here, which many of these items will be brought forward for your consideration. So I thank you for that, and I wish everybody a very good new year.
Motion to adjourn?
Weir motions. I'll second.
Meeting adjourned.